Di sini nggak pakai headset, kita butuh suara ini kan? Atau pakai headset semuanya? Baiknya.
Technology and many more. We can be a journalist.
UIN juga menyiapkan kita untuk menjadi profesional lainnya seperti politisi.
Terletak di Ciputat, Kota Tangerang Selatan, Provinsi Banten, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah memiliki posisi yang strategis karena berbatasan dengan Provinsi DKI Jakarta. Universitas ini berdiri kokoh di atas tanah seluas 223.306 meter persegi yang tersebar di beberapa daerah. Hingga menjadi bernama UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, kampus ini melampaui beberapa titik periode sejarah. Periode perintisan yakni bernama Akademi Dinas Ilmu Agama atau dikenal ADIA. Periode Institut Agama Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah. Dan saat ini adalah periode menjadi Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah. Dengan berbagai transformasinya, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta memiliki posisi penting bagi perkembangan pendidikan maupun pemikiran Islam di Indonesia, dan juga turut mewarnai pertumbuhan ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi di dunia internasional. Sebagai sebuah universitas, lembaga ini berkomitmen pada pembentukan insan yang berintegritas dan cerdas secara intelektual, spiritual, sosial, dan moral. Komitmen UIN Syarif Hidayatullah dalam membangun pendidikan juga nampak dalam visinya, yaitu menjadikan UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta sebagai pusat keunggulan di bidang studi Islam dan sains yang memperoleh pengakuan internasional. Melalui visi besar itu, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah berkomitmen untuk menjadikan UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta sebagai destinasi internasional untuk studi Islam dan sains, memperkuat pendidikan profesi, memperkuat implementasi integrasi ilmu dan agama, memberdayakan sumber daya manusia SDM berbasis riset, meningkatkan kualitas dan kuantitas infrastruktur, menata kampus yang lebih ramah lingkungan, melakukan penguatan manajemen dan tata kelola keuangan berbasis rencana strategis. Ada 11 fakultas dan 1 sekolah pasca sarjana di Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta. Universitas ini menawarkan studi-studi keislaman, studi-studi sosial, politik, dan ekonomi, serta sains dan teknologi modern, termasuk kedokteran dalam perspektif integrasi ilmu. Sepanjang 2011 hingga 2015, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah menerima 27.065 mahasiswa untuk program sarjana, magister, profesi, dan doktor. Dan sepanjang
Humans must seek enlightenment for their lives. Humans must select which paths that are able to bring them closer to a brighter future.
Saya senang kuliah di sini karena di sini banyak teman-teman dari background yang berbeda-beda.
Saya berasal dari madrasah.
I'm from Cape Town, South Africa.
Saya dari SMA. Awalnya saya pikir UIN hanya dipersiapkan untuk menjadi ustadz.
Setelah saya masuk UIN, banyak mata kuliah umum yang saya terima, dan saya bisa jadi apa saja yang saya cita-citakan.
We can learn about technology and many more. We can be a journalist.
UIN juga menyiapkan kita untuk menjadi profesional lainnya seperti politisi, praktisi, dan lainnya.
I chose UIN Jakarta because it's extremely moderate, tolerant, and innovative.
Sebuah kebanggaan bagi saya bisa menjadi bagian dari Sekolah Pasca Sarjana UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, sebuah kampus yang menawarkan kepada kita metodologi yang bersifat interdisciplinary.
ウィーンに入って気がついたのは、この大学が誰にとっても開かれた大学であるということです。異なる宗教、異なる国籍を持った学生たちが一緒に学んでいるのはとても素晴らしいことだと思います。
In here, fabulous.
The Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta is established as a high education institution that utilizes knowledge and religious matters as a way to open the world horizon. The Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta is located in Ciputat, South Tangerang City, Banten Province, making the college sit in a very strategic position because it is adjacent to the special capital region of Jakarta. The university solidly stands on 223,306 square meters that are spread in some areas. The university passes through some historical periods before it turns into the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta. In the pilot period, the university is named as the Theology Service Academy, or ADIA. It changes to become the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic Institute. And finally, the name is changed into the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University, Jakarta. Those transformations have led the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta, owning an important position for the growth of education and Islamic thought in Indonesia. The university has also contributed to the growth of knowledge and technology in the international world. As a university, this institution is committed to generate humans who have integrity, are intellectually, spiritually, socially, and morally smart. The commitment of the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta for education development is embodied in its visions to make the university as the excellence center for Islamic and science studies that obtains international acknowledgement. To achieve the visions, the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta strives for making the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta as an international destination for Islamic and science studies, reinforcing profession education, enhancing the implementation of the knowledge and religion integration, empowering research-based human resources, improving the quality and quantity of infrastructures, arranging the campus to be more friendly, affirming the management and financial governance based on strategic plannings. The Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta now runs 11 faculties and 1 postgraduate school. The university offers Islamic studies, social studies, politics, economics, science and modern technology, and medical studies in the perspectives of knowledge integration. Between 2011 and 2015, the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta has admitted 27,065 students for bachelor, magister, and doctorate programs. In the past 5 years, 20,710 students graduated from the bachelor, magister, and doctorate programs. Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta has students who have high spirits and good wills. They come from the various regions across the archipelago, some even from outside Indonesia.
Saya Bunga Adetama, second runner-up Putri Muslimah Indonesia 2015. Terus terang, tradisi di kampus ini sangat kondusif bagi saya untuk mengembangkan bakat, minat, dan potensi yang ada di diri saya. Pengalaman saya sebagai Putri Muslimah Indonesia membuat saya menjadi lebih percaya diri dan membuat karakter saya menjadi pribadi yang lebih baik.
Ada yang tidak mungkin selama kita terus berusaha. Dukungan dan lingkungan akademis yang ada di UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta telah membantu kami untuk mencapai level ini.
UIN tak pernah berhenti untuk terus memberikan bimbingan kepada kami menempuh jalan pengabdian kepada agama dan negara.
Halo. UIN turut serta mengubah saya ke arah kemandirian dan pembentukan kreativitas. Saya berkecimpung di bidang bisnis semenjak semester 3. Dengan memanfaatkan sampah, saya coba memberdayakan masyarakat sekitar untuk bisa mengubah sampah menjadi produk yang memiliki nilai jual. Karena kami ingin merubah paradigma negatif dari sampah menjadi hal yang positif. Karena sampah adalah selalu akan mudah apabila ada harapan.
Can you hear me? In higher education in Indonesia, the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta has cooperated with foundations and institutions inside and outside the country to increase the quality of the learning process and the education development of the university. The university has worked with several institutions in Asia, Africa, Europe, America, Australia, and the Middle East. The Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta records many achievements in the various fields of studies in the national and international levels. We can see the success of the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta from a number of its graduates who are best known as national figures, Muslim intellectuals, politicians, and state officials with national and international reputations.
Keunggulan UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, dosen yang dibandingkan dengan kampus-kampus lain yang ada di Indonesia ini memiliki kapasitas yang baik dari segi hasil pemikiran, dari segi produk karya ilmiah, serta dari segi reputasi internasionalnya. UIN Jakarta sudah banyak mencapai keberhasilan ini.
Mendirikan sebuah fakultas kedokteran Islam. Dan berarti lulusannya kan memang harus berbeda ya. Nah, salah satunya adalah kita ingin lulusan dari fakultas kedokteran, khususnya program studi dokter itu adalah menjadi seorang dokter muslim. Apa itu dokter muslim? Yaitu seorang dokter yang memang mempunyai sikap ya, yang memang menggambarkan nilai-nilai Islami. Seorang dokter yang melayani pasiennya itu dengan cara-cara yang Islami.
UIN merupakan jendela keunggulan akademik Islam atau kita sebut knowledge, piety, and integrity, yang merupakan sinergis antara pengetahuan, integritas, bagian dari komitmen memiliki pengetahuan, dan keimanan. Di samping itu juga UIN memiliki sinergi atau integritas antara keindonesiaan, keislaman, keilmuan, kemodernan, dan kemanusiaan. Pilar-pilar itulah yang membuat UIN menjadi unggul dan distintif dibandingkan perguruan tinggi di Indonesia.
Pilihlah UIN untuk tempat menjadi pengabdian di masa depan. Pilihlah UIN untuk tempat di mana kalian bisa mengembangkan diri sesuai dengan pilihan studinya. Kalian mau studi di bidang agama, kalian mau di bidang ilmu sosial, mau di bidang sains, kedokteran. Itu kalau kata guru kami dulu, Pak Nur Kholis Majid, almarhum Cak Nur, dia bilang kalau sudah menjadi terpelajar, orang tuh bisa menjadi apa aja. Dia bisa memimpikan apa aja. Dia bisa menjadi yang terbaik di bidang yang dia inginkan.
The National Accreditation Agency for Higher Education, Pate, says that the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta is one of the national colleges that is accredited A. Designed as a world-class university, the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta has confirmed itself as the Indonesian Islamic academic excellence window and is the barometer for learning development, research, and social works held by Indonesian Muslims in various fields of study. With all of the achievements, the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta centers all of its 2017 to 2021 working programs on a mission of making the Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta as a legal entity state college that is excellent in studies that integrate knowledge, all things related to Islam and those in regards to Indonesia and Southeast Asia. The indicators for this goal are holding status as an incorporated college, PTNBH, having sufficient research resources, and becoming one of the best 100 colleges in Southeast Asia. The Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta is expected to be one of the best 300 colleges in the world between 2027 and 2031.
Saya Profesor Dr. Deen MA, Rector UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta. Pencapaian yang terbaik, yang tertinggi saat yang dicapai oleh UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta sampai hari ini adalah di mana apresiasi dunia luar kepada UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta sudah terlihat dengan pemeringkatan yang dilakukan oleh pemeringkatan luar. GSC umpamanya, Google Scholar Citation Index, itu menempatkan UIN Jakarta sebagai the Big Five di Indonesia, di mana posisi di GSC UIN Syarif Hidayatullah berada pada posisi kelima setelah ITB, UI, Gajah Mada, Undip, kemudian yang terakhir adalah yang kelima adalah UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta. Pencapaian-pencapaian ini tidak lain adalah hasil kerja keras para sivitas akademikanya dan juga keseriusan para guru besar dalam melaksanakan kerja-kerja akademik mereka. Kita mempersiapkan para mahasiswa, khususnya mahasiswa yang pada level undergraduate studies, yaitu mahasiswa level sarjana, untuk semuanya mempunyai skill, mempunyai keterampilan yang spesifik skill dan juga general transferable skill. Dan yang paling penting adalah bagaimana mereka bisa berkomunikasi secara global. Mereka bisa berkomunikasi dengan komunikasi seluruh masyarakat untuk seluruh masyarakat ASEAN. Insya Allah kampus ini akan menjadi kampus yang tidak hanya eksklusif untuk Indonesia, tapi juga merupakan bagian dari pengembangan ilmu dan pengetahuan untuk dunia. Untuk itulah maka kemudian kita sekarang one step ahead akan menjadi bagian dari kampus di Asia Tenggara melalui AUNKIE ini, dan mudah-mudahan kita will be accepted as well oleh AUNKIE, sehingga akan menjadi bagian dari kampus besar di Asia Tenggara untuk mendapatkan rekognisi dari dunia dan akan menjadi par excellences dalam kajian-kajian keislaman dan juga par excellences dalam kajian-kajian sains dan teknologi ke depan. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ilmu Dakwah dan Ilmu Komunikasi adalah fakultas yang berada di Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Visi Fakultas Ilmu Dakwah dan Ilmu Komunikasi adalah menjadi fakultas terdepan dalam pendidikan ilmu dakwah dan ilmu komunikasi dalam bingkai integrasi keilmuan, keislaman, dan keindonesiaan. Melalui visi besar itu, Fakultas Ilmu Dakwah dan Ilmu Komunikasi berkomitmen menyelenggarakan pendidikan dan pengajaran yang berkualitas dan mumpuni dalam ilmu dakwah dan ilmu komunikasi. Melakukan penelitian yang berkualitas dalam rangka pengembangan ilmu dakwah dan ilmu Ilmu Dakwah dan Ilmu Komunikasi adalah fakultas yang berada di Universitas Islam Negeri, berdaya saing tinggi dan terdepan dalam keilmuan, keislaman, dan keterampilan di bidang komunikasi dan penyiaran Islam. Jurnalistik bertujuan menghasilkan lulusan dengan kemampuan akademik tinggi dan profesionalitas sebagai jurnalis muslim yang terintegrasi dengan nilai-nilai keislaman, kemodernan, dan keindonesiaan.
Ingin menjadi jurnalis? Ya UIN Jakarta dong.
Manajemen dakwah, program studi yang berwawasan kemanusiaan, keislaman, keindonesiaan, dan global, serta unggul dalam kajian manajemen dakwah.
Menjadi manajer dakwah yang profesional dan amanah dalam mengelola lembaga keuangan Islam, pembagian zakat, dan juga penyelenggaraan haji dan umrah.
Bimbingan penyuluhan Islam bertujuan menjadi pusat keunggulan dalam bidang penyuluhan. Menghasilkan cendekiawan muslim yang menguasai dan menghasilkan ilmu pengetahuan yang inovatif dan berwawasan lingkungan melalui kegiatan penelitian di bidang ilmu bimbingan dan penyuluhan Islam.
Halo Pak Didi. Ya. Assalamualaikum. Halo. Iya, Assalamualaikum. Gimana? Siap. Waalaikumsalam ya, gimana Pak? Ya, gimana? Siapa tadi dia bilang dia selama. Belumnya saya digambarnya belum ya. Ya. Oke. Ya. Oke. Yuk. Halo, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you everybody? This evening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I would like to know whether Ibu Rector is already available in this forum or not yet. And also I would like to say hello to Professor John L. Esposito. Hello, Prof. Are you here? And I would like to say hello to Professor Hamid Slimi. Hello, Prof. Slimi, are you here? All right. Professor Umar Pate. Are you here, Prof? Professor Muhammad Shamsi Ali, are you here, Prof. Shamsi Ali? I would like to say hello to Professor Andy Faisal. Are you here, Prof?
Hello. Yes.
All right. How are you, Prof. Andy Faisal Bhakti?
I'm glad to see that we're connecting. I was a little concerned about it.
All right, Prof. Esposito will come.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
He should be able to talk to you.
Okay, hi, Professor John Esposito. Nice to hear you again, to see you again.
Good to see you
Long
too.
time,
It's been a while.
I think 16 years ago. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I look a little older, but other than that,
Yes, not much older.
Good morning,
nice,
Professor
yeah.
Esposito.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
How is it now in the States? No
Today-
demonstration?
Today it's fine. It's a beautiful day. There have been demonstrations. And then also today, I may have to leave the meeting a little later in the morning. I'll be on for much of it.
Really?
Because the provost wants to talk with me and some others about what we're going to do in the fall at Georgetown. In other words, will we go back to campus or will we be on the internet for the whole semester?
Which one you prefer? Internet or
I
face-to-face?
prefer to be there normally for teaching because you can see people's eyes when you're teaching.
Right.
But right now, I prefer internet because it's still, in terms of physical safety and security, it's still an issue here.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. And the problem, we cannot see if kids are playing around and not listening to us. Yeah. We
Yeah,
cannot
there's
also
actually-
make so much jokes. Yeah, because probably they don't really respond to our jokes. Yeah.
There was a piece in the New York Times today by a professor saying exactly that. You know, he said, opening up campuses, you know, you're kidding yourself if you don't realize that students will often be in situations physically too close that are dangerous.
Right. Yeah. So have you been in contact with Professor Hamid Maulana in American University at Washington, D.C.?
No. How long has he been there?
I think also for last time I contacted him, yeah, same as you, 15 years ago. Yeah, when I did my postdoc back in 2000 and actually 2003, 2001, 2002. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
It's
Yeah.
18 years ago. But after that, I'm still in contact by email. Yeah. But since then, no more. Yeah. Nice to hear. I heard that you got a lot of publications lately.
Yeah, I've been busy. I've been very lucky. I've been able to do a lot of publishing, and today I'll be briefly a bit critical in the beginning of the American Academy of Religion and the Middle East Studies Association, because years ago they didn't cover Islam at all. But in the past years, I've been very lucky that both of them have elected me president at different times. I can remember when I first studied Islam, Islam wasn't even included in their annual programs.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. So how is the chair now, the moderator, Pak Dadi and Pak Suparto?
We are ready,
The
Prof.
director is there already?
Well, we are still waiting for Ibu Rector. Hello, Ibu Rector.
Here we go.
Are you here, Ibu Rector? We're waiting for you.
She will knock at your doors later.
Well, I think I'll knock the door. Prof Slimi, are you here? Prof Slimi? Hello, good morning, Prof Slimi. All right, we're still waiting. Prof Umar Pate from Nigeria. Good afternoon, Prof Pate. Are you here, Prof? All right. Al-Mukarram Imam Shamsi Ali. Hello, Imam Shamsi Ali, are you here? Well, we'll stay waiting for two. Yusuf Kara, brother Yusuf Kara from Al Khairat, Malaysia, are you here?
Okay, not yet. That's the problem of technology.
The problem may be that when you first get on, it actually says that you're unmuted, that you're muted.
Yes.
The signal says you're muted, and one has to remember to unmute themselves.
Yes, that's the problem. Yeah, quite actually familiar with that, but sometimes you're still forgetting to unmute ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost 1,500 participants.
Yes.
How many participants now, Mr. Chair?
Well,
it's a little over 400 now, 417 already now.
But registered, there are, as I know, that there are 1,400 something, almost 1,500 participants.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. 1,538.
Yeah, incredible. So, Prof Esposito, you've got a lot of audience waiting for you.
That's right. Yeah, it's because of Prof Esposito. I think many people
They're
are
all familiar with you.
Yeah.
Can someone contact Ibu Rector?
All right, I'll contact her anyway.
Yeah, someone.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yes.
Okay, there we are. Good.
It's already.
Is she there?
Professor Esposito, we were wondering if you have anything to share for this webinar. Do you have any materials to share?
No, it's just me.
Oh, okay.
You too.
Okay, great.
I don't want to distract anybody by having them look at anything else but me.
All right. So, sure. Thank you.
What about convocation in your university? Is there any convocation, graduation?
No.
Not at all.
No. Everything has been, since last March, everything has been closed down.
What about like thesis defense and?
Some of that gets done on the web. Yeah.
Oh, really?
In fact, what's been interesting is that ever since we had the COVID problem, in fact, I and many people wind up doing more speaking than we normally would, because everybody discovered they can have a webinar.
Exactly. So that's why we thank you so much for accepting this to be with us in this webinar, because I know you must be busy. Yeah.
Okay.
Ibu Rector is already there?
Prof. Andi Faisal Bakti, I think we can start.
Okay, but Director,
all right.
So
Rector is on the way.
Speak later.
Yeah, Rector is on the way. Okay. She's going to be here in a minute. So her secretary said to me that we can make a start.
Okay.
All right.
Shall I start with my program, or do you want to say something, or shall I start?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. I just would like to welcome everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, honorable rectors, honorable vice rectors, and all the university's dignitaries, distinguished speakers, respected fellow lecturers, beloved students, boys and girls, all participants, ladies and gentlemen, peace be upon you, all brothers and sisters. I am delighted to be here as moderator in the most respected forum, where around 1,500 people registered to participate. Indeed, we are very proud about this. First of all, I would like to thank God the Almighty, who has bestowed us this great opportunity, where we are now together in this forum, a special forum that breaks the wall of time and space constraints, a great forum in which we are enjoying the most enlightening discussion with prominent scholars and experts on their respected fields. We warmly welcome you all to this international webinar on Islamic communication in the era of social media, challenges and opportunities. I do believe this topic will stimulate a constructive thought and develop our understanding about the concept of Islamic communication. I would also like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Honorable Rector, Professor Amany Lubis, who is now with us and is willing to say a few words on the topic, and to welcome the distinguished speakers and all respected participants. Thanks so much for your tremendous supports and excellent attentiveness. Special thanks also go to Honorable Vice Rector for Cooperation and Institutional Development, Professor Dr. Andi Faisal Bakti, lovable friends at Da'wah and Communication, Science Faculty, and Honorable Director and the staff of the Office of International Cooperation Services, Honorable Head and members of Islamic Communication and Broadcasting Association, and all colleagues without whom this webinar would not have come into being. I appreciate your tireless and sincere efforts in making this webinar successful. God bless you all. Thank you so much for your sacrifice. And I would also like to extend my deepest gratitude to all distinguished, eminent, and esteemed speakers who are sincerely willing to share their insights in this forum, their knowledge and their experiences on this topic amidst their hectic schedules. Please allow me to mention the names of the very generous and distinguished speakers. First, Professor John L. Esposito, University Professor and Founding Director, Prince Alwaleed bin Talal Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, Director. the Bridge Initiative ICC 260, Georgetown University, Washington, USA, and Professor Hamid Slimi, Chairman and Professor, Canadian Center for Deen Studies, Imam, and President, Sayeda Khadija Center, Toronto, Canada. Good morning. And Professor Umar, Pate, Faculty of Communication and Dean School of Postgraduate Studies, Bayero University, Kano, Nigeria, and also Director of Orbicom. Good afternoon, Prof. Pate. And I would like to thank Dr. Muhammad Shamsi Ali, a Director and Imam at Jamaica Muslim Center, New York, President of Nusantara Foundation, America, and President of Muslim Foundation, America, and founder of Pondok Pesantren, the Islamic boarding school, Nur Inka Nusantara Madani, Connecticut, USA, and Professor Dr. Andi Faisal Bakti, Professor of Communication, Vice Rector for Cooperation and Institutional Development, UIN Jakarta, Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University in Jakarta. And last but not the least, I would also like to thank you, Brother Yusuf Kara, Director of Nursi Research Center and Training, International Islamic University, Malaysia. We are very much grateful for your coming to this forum. And ladies and gentlemen, to solemnly open the webinar, let us honor our country by listening to the national anthem, Indonesia Raya. We're still waiting for the team to prepare the national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Thank you very much, and please do apologize for any inconvenience might cause for the technical glitch that suddenly happens. To apologize for that. Now we have to move to the opening session, which is dedicated to Madam Rector. Please welcome Honorable Rector of Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University, Professor Dr. Amany Lubis. Please, Madam, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Suparto, the Dean of Faculty of Dawah and Communication in our campus, State Islamic University, Syarif Hidayatullah. Okay, first of all, I would like to greet all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Good evening to everyone. This is a very precious occasion that we meet in this webinar tonight or in the morning in the USA and Canada. This is very important event for the faculty and also for the university because we can meet in this online webinar to discuss such an important thing about Islamic communication in the era of social media, challenges and opportunities. So I would like, first of all, to welcome also all of the speakers from many countries, respected speakers, distinguished guests of this event. It is also a good opportunity to meet the professors and during the past time before the COVID-19 pandemic, we meet in a conference, an international conference, but nowadays we cannot do it because of the lockdown system all over the world and also in our campus. So we encourage very much to have such a webinar. And especially I would like to welcome and to greet also Professor John L. Esposito. We met several times in Indonesia and I think, in Indonesia. So it's a good opportunity to hear you and to learn from you a lot. And also all of the speakers like Professor Dr. Hamid, Slimi, Umar, Pate, and also Imam Shamsi Ali. So this is a very good opportunity to learn from you all. And as for this theme, I'd like to highlight two challenges and also two opportunities that we can think about and bring about also solutions to these challenges. First of all, I'd like to have the social consequences of communication in COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a very important thing to address because during this time we have many hate speeches, fake news, hoax, and also false news. In the field of communication, this is all our negative because it's contrary. They are contrary to the moral guidelines provided by the Quran, the holy book of the Muslims, and also contrary to the international moralities and contrary also to the local wisdoms in all over the world. So we should also see that the challenges nowadays we face lack of clearness and lack of courtesy. So the challenges of the Islamic communication in this era of social media, we should clarify a lot of things, because we still face Islamophobia. Islamophobia from outside and also from within, in the same believers of the religion. So that clearness is important in this era, and also courtesy. What I mean by courtesy is that we respect the receiver's culture and also values. So we need to do that, because we need to interact with all of the communities and all of the people all over the world peacefully, and also we can prove that Muslim can live peacefully with all of the believers from all of the all parts of the world. Yes, and I'll come to the opportunities. What I see that the message of Islam is to acknowledge one another. This is one of the famous holy verse of the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن
جاءكم فاسق
إن الله جعل I'm sorry
إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا
no it's about the very famous verse is about the التعارف يا إنا جعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. This is the very universal message of Islam. So we need to stick together, no matter the race of the faith, but we can live together peacefully, and the coexistence can exist all over the world. So the second opportunity, besides the holy message of the Quran, the universality of the morality of Islam. So the second opportunity, what we see now is distributive technologies. What I mean by the distributive technologies that we use now through internet and also the social media, there is also effective means to communicate. So in our campus, for example, we develop e-learning. We develop also distance learning. Even for the research, we also use very much the internet. So this is opportunity for us to have right communication. And so we do also collaborative planning and meeting like this webinar. We can develop communication, and also we spread love, mercy, and also compassion to one another, to each other, so that we can live together peacefully. I think this is what I want to say during this event, and I hope you have a fruitful discussion, and also we will learn a lot from the speakers. Thank you very much for the organizer for having this tremendous event, the webinar. And I thank also the Faculty of Dawah and Communication for their active to remind the world about our campus, that we exist, and we also need to know the conditions and also the ideas from the scholars, from also the leaders, community leaders, and also from the religious leaders about the conditions, so that we can communicate effectively with one another. Thank you very much for all of the participants also. I greet all of the participants who also participate in this webinar. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Madam Rector, for such a very nice and illuminating remarks in which you mention the verses that remind us, Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dhakari wa unsa wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu. All human beings, verily we created you into men and women, and created you into tribes and nations in order for you to know one another. I think this is the main message of the Quran, that we are different, but through the communication, through collaboration, through harmony, we can be hand in hand together to develop this world to be a better place to live. Thank you very much. And dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Islamic body of knowledge definitely develops. From epistemological point of view, the establishment of Islamic colleges and universities epitomizes the structure of Islamic knowledge and disciplines. Using different terms, we find tarbiyah as Islamic education, Sharia as Islamic law, Usuluddin maybe as Islamic philosophy, Adab as Islamic humanity, and Da'wah as Islamic communication. The latest is the locus of our discussion this evening. Unfortunately, Da'wah has been widely understood as Islamic preaching or Islamic propagation per se in the community. It has also been seen as an activity that involves religious sermons and religious missionary activities. As a matter of fact, Da'wah embraces some disciplines, including Islamic communication and broadcasting, Islamic journalism, Islamic community development, Da'wah management, Islamic guidance and counseling, and Islamic social welfare. These disciplines encapsulates the very concept of Da'wah. Hence, some Da'wah faculties are available within 58 state-owned Islamic higher education institutions and around 700 private Islamic institutions all over Indonesia under the auspices of the Ministry of Religious Affairs. Therefore, we put on the table some interesting topics that related to the issues of Islamic communication, including the representation of Islam in Western media, social media coverage of Islam in Canada, Islamic media institutions in Africa, the case of Nigeria, Da'wah communication in the United States, spiritual Da'wah, active and independent learners of Islamic messages, and Da'wah and social media disseminating Said Nursi's thoughts in Malaysia. These are the few topics that will be very important to be highlighted in this forum. Well, without further ado, we are pleased to welcome our first special speaker. I would like to say hello again to Professor Umar Pate. Hello, Professor Umar Pate. Are you here already? Hello, Prof. From Nigeria. Good afternoon. Maybe it's already 2:30 p.m.
Good afternoon.
Oh,
good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. All right, we're waiting for you. We are very glad. We are very delighted to welcome you in this forum. And Professor Umar Pate is going to shed light upon Islamic media institutions in Africa, the case of Nigeria. Prof. Pate, you are given 20 minutes only. I will give you a hint in the last 5 minutes. The floor is yours. Thank you. Yeah, Prof. Pate?
Okay, assalamu alaikum to all of you from different parts. From different parts. As was highlighted, I will be focusing on Islamic media institutions in Africa with specific reference to the Nigerian case. Well, ideally, I should be talking about Africa, but because of logistics and other issues, I limited myself to my own country, Nigeria, which I'm very much familiar with. Before going into issues relating to religion and the media, I think it will be important for us to have a little understanding of the country called Nigeria. First, Nigeria is a federal nation with about 36 states politically, and then it is highly diverse, multicultural, heterogeneous, with all sorts of complexities, of which religion is one. It has over 300 ethnic groups, about 500 indigenous languages, and dozens of registered political parties, with a population exceeding 200 million. Some are saying about 210 million. On the economy, Nigeria is one of the world's 10 largest producers of petroleum in the world, but again, it is also ranked among the poorest countries on the globe. The Islam, as a religion, has been in this country for centuries, and it is dominant in the northern part of the country, with a large representation also in the southwest. Well, because of the political nature of this country, we hardly talk about the number of adherents of each of the religions. For example, in the last census, the component relating to religion was conveniently removed because of the politics involved. But if you go through the literature, mostly people talk about 55 to 60% of Nigerians being Muslims. Now, religion in Nigeria is a very contentious issue. There are two major religions, Islam and Christianity. Of course, there are also traditional religious people. And the Constitution of Nigeria grants religious freedom to every citizen. Religion is key and central to the lives of the people of this country. But it is also a very contentious and a very sensitive issue that runs through all the things that we do. Often, the line between religion and ethnicity is blurred. Sometimes people mix the two. Some people believe if you are in socio-ethnic group, automatically you are a Muslim. Then one issue that I must also mention is that politicians in this country take advantage of religion and involve religious activities in what they do to their own advantage, sometimes resulting in devastating consequences. Again, I must also state that Nigeria had witnessed countless number of religiously related violence, that today we are even experiencing what we call Boko Haram or jihadists that have been fighting an undeclared or an unfocused or an undefined war for the past 10 years. Now, Islam and media use. History of Islam and media in Nigeria may not necessarily be available as of today, But since the 1930s, when the first newspaper was edited by a northerner, issues of Islam has been published in our own local newspapers. And the mass media generally is being used for Islamic propagation, proselytization, enlightenment, pedagogy, and all the other things that one will expect it to do. Islamic groups, we have multiple of them here, different Islamic groups, different Islamic sects, and they all use the media to propagate their doctrines, defend belief systems, and sometimes popularize their own identities as groups. Most groups and sects have media and publicity wings in this country, and some of them are very, very powerful, I must say. Islamic scholars and leaders use, in terms of ranking, first interpersonal communication channels to propagate their preachings. Then we also have the broadcast media, which is very popular in this part of the world. And of course, now the social media, and then the print media, which is not as popular as the one that I've mentioned. And now, if you talk about Islam and broadcasting in Nigeria, broadcasting, like I've said, is a very popular and widely used medium in this country. There are over 600 or getting to 700 broadcast media organizations, TV, radio stations that are registered, without talking about those that are online. We have countless of them. Now, one thing about Nigeria is that the law prohibits religious organizations from owning and controlling or operating broadcast media organizations because of the nature of our politics. The law says a licensed station shall be used, however, to promote national interest, unity and cohesion, and that it shall not be used to offend the religious sensibilities or promote ethnicity, sectionalism, hatred, and disaffection among the people of Nigeria. I'm quoting from the law. Now, that notwithstanding, religious broadcasting is a very popular thing in Nigeria. Religious programs are aired on various media houses according to the National Broadcasting Court, which directs on how religious content should be aired. Now, groups, like I've said, many of them operate productions outfits locally. But what they do to circumvent the law, they go to neighboring countries to hire radio stations that can rebroadcast into the country, or alternatively now with online media and with signal distributors. They also hire channels outside Nigeria that now rebroadcast into the country. There are a number of Islamic television stations, radio stations that you can find on the platforms of signal distributors, and people here access them. And most of the broadcasting is done in the local languages that the people in Nigeria can understand, particularly like in the North Hausa. Now, the social media, Islamic bodies today have imbibed the use of online and social media platforms. Much of the activities are done in the local languages, like I said. The internet and social media platforms are the major routes today being used by major Islamic bodies and prominent Islamic scholars. Most of our Islamic scholars today have their sites where they also present their teachings. Jihadists, unfortunately, who are involved in the negative dimension of popularizing Islam are also found online, and they have their website, like the Boko Haram people. In fact, some of the harsh exchanges between Muslims and other religious people, or within the religion, intra-religious exchanges, sometimes are also found on the social media. Now, for the print media, there are many occasional publications from different groups. Many Islamic bodies attempted regular publications like newspapers and magazines, but most of them have collapsed, either because of funding, because of patronage, or because of the nature and complexities of the politics of religion in Nigeria. Few are operating at very low rate and with extreme difficulty. There are also renowned Islamic publishers that are involved in book publication, not newspapers or magazines. There are also some sympathetic newspapers, either owned by Muslims or by Muslim friends, that are also involved in popularizing Islamic ideas. Many of them have columns that are popular on Fridays. Now, we also have external Islamic publications that come into the country, and they can be purchased readily at vendor stands. And then, like I've said, in conclusion, there are a number of interpersonal communication channels which are the most dominantly used by Islamic scholars and Islamic movements. Many Islamic publicity and media organizations exist, but legally, like I said, they cannot own and operate broadcast media organizations in Nigeria. And newspapers, like I've said, they are also just not as popular as one would expect. Now, broadcasting and print media outlets, depending on location, there are some states, if you go, there are no Islamic programs at all. But if you come up north, almost every radio station operates or runs Islamic programs. And this is the way it is being done. And now the internet has taken over. It is the most popular, the most used, and our people have imbibed it. Now, Islamic-oriented newspapers, like I've said, are few and episodic. So to understand this very well, one needs to understand the politics, the economics, and the social dimensions of Nigeria, and the sensitivity of religion. So because of that, you see, there must be some level of balance, some kind of caution in the way these media organizations operate. But they are available, particularly online, and they are also accepted and being used. So these are some of the few remarks I can make considering the limitation of time on the issue of Islamic media institutions in Nigeria, but I'll be ready to answer more questions.
All right. Thank you, Prof. Pate. Well, it is so complicated in Nigeria, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-interest, I think, from different groups with different interests, using media to cater their own interests. And also now internet becomes the most favorite among the people to disseminate their thoughts and organization and also their interests as well. I think later on, we're going to open the QA session. Thank you very much, Professor Pate. Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker is a very well-known scholar, prominent professor and prolific author who has written some seminal works on Islam, such as The Future of Islam, What Everyone Needs to Know About Islam, Unholy War, Terror in the Name of Islam, and many more. I just mentioned few only. He's going to share with us about the representation of Islam in Western media. Please welcome Professor John L. Esposito. The floor is yours for 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be with you today. I had hoped actually to come to Indonesia in March. I had a board meeting in Malaysia, but COVID-19 prevents all of that. Indonesia was one of the first programs that I ever visited in the Muslim world back in the mid-1970s when I began my career. And in fact, it's been probably more of my books have been published into Bahasa Indonesia than in any other language. Today, I want to address two major social media projects that I and the center have pioneered: the Bridge Initiative and Oxford Islamic Studies Online. One of the questions might be, well, why are we doing this? Why do we, why do these specific kinds of programs? What we face today is a world in which, on the one hand, it's global. That globalization, which has its positive, also has its negative side and aspects. And we see today, as the distinguished president of the university spoke of, we see the presence of Islamophobia across a good deal of the world. But as I begin my talk, let me just give you a couple of background points, because many in the audience probably would be too young to appreciate this. Islam and scholarship in the 21st century is the product of an enormous boom in access to information, an enormous boom. But this was not always the case. In the late 1960s and 1970s, when I was doing my doctoral work, In the West, programs at universities, publications, opportunities to speak were very, very few. You could actually go into prominent bookstores and you'd be lucky to find 1 or 2 books that dealt with Islam. Major professional organizations like the American Academy of Religion, which is supposed to include all of the great religions, and the Middle East Studies Association, neither of them had any major coverage of Islam. In fact, with the American Academy of Religion, my professor, Ismail Al-Faruqi, and I and others had to, in the 1970s, petition and then finally get Islam as accepted as one of the major religions represented there. And today we have many programs at our annual conferences, but they did not exist at that time. Most book publishers were not interested in books on Islam. As a young scholar, when I would send out proposals, I'd get back a polite letter from maybe 3 out of 100. The other 97 didn't even bother to answer. And the 3 would say something like, great idea, but there's no market. There's no market for selling these books, that anybody's going to buy these books. All this changed dramatically with the Iranian Revolution in 1978-79, dramatically. And of course, also 9/11 also did that as well. But of the Iranian Revolution, I often say that I owe my career to Ayatollah Khomeini and the Iranian Revolution, because with the Iranian Revolution, suddenly the world was fixed on what was going on in the Muslim world as being something very important and the need to know about Islam. Even governments back in those days did not have, when they were training diplomats to go out, they very rarely dealt with religion and political culture. All of that has changed dramatically. A major challenge in the West and increasingly globally, China, India, Myanmar, has been and continues to be Islamophobia, anti-Islam and anti-Muslim attitudes and behaviors. Major sources for this, sadly, at times are governments, the media, and especially social media, which I will touch on later in my talk. So the 2 major projects, Oxford Islamic Studies Online and The Bridge, were created to respond to this reality. Oxford Islamic Studies Online was created in 2007 because one of the issues that Oxford University Press and I discussed, I'm editor-in-chief of that site, was the need for accurate information. When people get on the internet, as you know, if you get on the internet with social media today and you're looking up something about Islam and Muslims, you can find all kinds of contradictory statements. You can find lots of statements that are made by people who one would describe as Islamophobes, and your average reader would have no sense of, what here is actually objective and what is really very problematic. So we wanted to create a portal, a trusted internet source to access accurate information. The Bridge Initiative was created 5 years ago in 2015 because we saw how social media had really become the prime driver, as was mentioned by the previous speaker. In many countries today, majorities of people get their information from social media. And certainly people use it all of the time. If they want to check out a personality, if you meet somebody or you read about them, you go up on social media for, who is he? What's the case? I remember years ago when I went to the Netherlands and visited some of the people in the parliament, one of the people said, "Oh, John Esposito, I know this about you and that about you." And I looked at him and thought, I said, "How do you know any of this about me?" He said, "The internet." And I said, "The internet?" He said, "Wikipedia." I said, "Wikipedia." I hadn't yet myself gotten into social media. So the Bridge is there to counter Islamophobic messages, authors, and websites. Let me begin by telling you a little bit about Oxford Islamic Studies Online. We designed it to be a first stop for anyone needing information and about Islam and Muslims and the context. The idea is to have an authoritative, dynamic resource that brings together the best current scholarship for students, scholars, government officials, community groups, librarians, to foster more accurate information and understanding. We have renowned scholars who provide our articles. We have 5,000 plus articles from A to Z on that website. If you want to know about Islam, if you want to know about Muslim countries, if you want to know about Islamic art and architecture, if you want to know about just about anything that you can think of in terms of the Muslim world, as well as if you want to know what's happening now. As editor-in-chief, I have a column that I bring out 3 or 4 times a year, and we also have special studies that we put throughout the year on, for example, more recently, we will be doing them on China, Myanmar, and India. On there, people also can have access to many of the major research tools. The Oxford Encyclopedia of the Islamic World, the Oxford Handbook of Islam and Politics, and many other encyclopedias and teaching materials. And we have 2 of the classic versions of the Quran in particular. We have others, but the 2 by Abdul Halim of the Quran, and also a much older translation, which is still classic for many people, the Quran interpreted by A.J. Arbery, and all kinds of background information. When we move to the Bridge Initiative, I should say the title of our Bridge Initiative is Protecting Pluralism. That's what we're supposed to be about in America. And as you can see by some of the riots that we've had lately, we're not doing a very good job of that. Protecting pluralism and ending Islamophobia. Now, some observations quickly about Islamophobia. The spread of Islamophobia is not just the question of Muslim extremists and terrorists and the kind of message that they send. It's also that we're dealing with media, we're dealing with presidential elections in the US and also in other countries. And we're dealing with an organized network of Islamophobic websites and authors that receive a significant amount of funding. Just a couple of quick observations. Media Tenor, T-E-N-O-R, which is a major monitor of media globally, did a study from 2001 to 2011. It looked at 975,000 pieces of media. And within all of that, it looked at where do we see anything about Islam or Muslims? And at that point, it found that 2% of the articles that one could see in all of this, 2% were on extremism, 0.1% on the vast majority of Muslims in the world and of mainstream Islam. By 2011, looking again at that 975,000 articles, by 2011, the 2% had jumped to 25%. That is on extremism, so a quarter of it was on extremism, and it was still 0.1% of all that material dealing with mainstream Islam. Complete problem there. 2015, 2016, they found that 8 out of 10 articles looking at Germany, the US, in terms of media pieces, Germany, the US and the UK, 8 out of 10 were negative. So by 2015, basically the report that came out basically said Islamophobia is normalized. It's normalized. So we created our resource. When I mentioned elections, I could go back to Obama's election and the questions that were raised about, was he a Muslim or not? Candidates that referred to Islam, if we're looking at the US, but you could look globally on this. But certainly we see with President Trump when he was running for office, when he said Islam hates us, and when he was questioned on that, and then the Muslim ban, and that which was then put into place. And what we find is we have an organized network of these individuals and places that, in fact, in 2 major studies, one by the Center for American Progress, which found out, looking at several years, that $42.6 million had gone to these kinds of people coming from foundations. CARE did a major study that showed that more than $219 million over a period of years had been going to these groups. So we're talking about tremendous resources. So that's why we need and felt we needed the bridge. And for the bridge, we compile and curate daily headlines. Every day on the bridge, we will have major pieces, headline pieces from all over the world, and show you the piece and have a summary of that piece. And we provide a variety of other things, which I'll describe very briefly now. People can sign up on our website to receive this daily mailing. And I should mention ahead of time that we have 1.1 million followers on Facebook, 1.1 million followers on Facebook from 190 countries. But what we see, if you look at our website, are articles and editorials. We have researchers in Vienna, London, and the US who do critical analysis on major topics. So we've talked about what you need to know about China's campaign against Uyghur Muslims, COVID-19 exasperating Islamophobia in India. We have Islamophobia as a battlefield in education. We have for Sri Lanka Muslims, the Easter bombing anniversary marks a year of scapegoating and persecution. We look at the Christchurch anniversary and what's happening there. And a major study on Islamophobia has no place in the fight against COVID-19. In fact, it's been used at times. We also had fact sheets, which is our most popular section. Rather than just articles, because people will always say, if you write articles, well, how are you interpreting this or that? We have fact sheets which just provide facts. So if you want to know what the President of the United States, if you want to know what the Secretary of State, with many of people in the administration, if you want to know what major writers around the world have written about Islam, and particularly Islamophobic authors and sites, we have fact sheets on many of those. We've published 125 fact sheets, and actually we have more that are coming out in the near future, another 65. They're 1 to 2 pages, bulleted list of primary links. So with the fact sheet, you not only get the facts, you get a link that backs up the fact. And that's become very popular and has been used by major media, National Public Radio, Al Jazeera, in the UK, The Guardian, and in many parts of the world, media people have focused on that. Our reports deal with American, European, Chinese, Indian, Myanmar, Israeli governments and their policies. Islamophobic authors, as I said. Data is simplified into very eye-catching visual infographics. And then we have an area called podcasts, voices that look at the issues with regard to Islamophobia. Our podcasts have featured people like Baroness Sayeda, a British lawyer, politician, and member of the House of Lords who served as the co-chair of the Conservative Party. And she's written a book, actually, dealing with Islamophobia and being Muslim in Britain. We've had Miqdad Versi, Assistant Secretary General of the Muslim Council in Britain, writing about Islamophobia and its media portrayal. We've had Mark Sageman, a specialist on extremism and terrorism, and looking at the way in which that has been handled by governments and other experts. But we also have a major outreach program, which has become very popular. Last year, we did 35 workshops. We've run it for a long time. We train and provide materials during the training period for teachers around the United States. So, and it's all free. And we go and train them so that they, in their courses on Islam or their courses on world history or world religions, will be able to provide accurate information about the beliefs, practices, issues in world history. We also help them to develop curriculum so that they have confidence, because these are people that weren't trained, for example, in Islam or the Muslim world, or even in how to teach about religion in a world religions course or a world history course. We provide them with not only the lectures, but also the visuals and the materials so that they can feel confident when they go into a classroom that they really now have done, developed a kind of minor expertise in this area. As the Bridge Initiative's audience has grown over the years, it's come to include practitioners, scholars, and the general public, as well as the media, and very often interested government officials. As I said before, we now have an audience on Facebook of 1.1 million. and our resources continue to be cited in publications around the world. In the last week, it's been Norway, I think Malaysia. So it's been a major project. And I would just end with this. We face a situation where the good thing is that unlike the 1970s and 80s, when people didn't know what Islam was, or for many, in those years, America was very much a Judeo-Christian country, Judaism, Christianity. But today, you have mosques all over the country. You have temples, Buddhist, temples, Hindu temples all over the country. So that's a plus. But we know that there's a transcendent side of religion and there's a dark side of religion. The transcendent side is that for those of us who are religious, we believe in a transcendent reality, which many of us call God or Allah. And we also believe that that belief helps us transcend and be better people, transcend some of our baser problems, but to become a better person. But we also know that throughout history, and certainly today, religion has had its dark side. The problem of religion and violence runs across all religions. Part of the issue is not only that, but in fact, we see with globalization an increase across much of the world in terms of what, if you're looking at Europe and America, would be seen as white nationalism and supremacy. But on the other hand, you see versions of nationalism and supremacy in Myanmar, in India, in China, etc., that are a problem. Our challenge for many of us is to use all of the materials that are available. Now, for many of us who are scholars and many people watching today, we write our books, we write our articles. But the real challenge is, how do we get out to an audience? Today's audience is social media driven. We also know from studies that people's attention span is extremely narrow. You have to catch them and try to hold on to them. And social media is really a major place for the kind of work that I think many of us do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Esposito. He mentioned about two major programs, Oxford Islamic Study Online, that was established in 2007, and also bridge initiatives. And he also of the opinion that Islamophobia and anti-Islam is actually coming from the actors of the government, media, and social media. To encounter these problems, the projects are very much meaningful for the people. And he also mentioned that he provides materials on Islam for teachers throughout United States, visual and written resources. And there are some questions I think already available in the chat room for Professor Pate. I think you can read, and maybe Professor Esposito also, you can pick up some or few of the questions that you might respond later in the QA answer. All right, so we are coming to the third most respected speaker, Professor Hamid Slimi. Professor Slimi is pleased to highlight on an important issue faced by Muslims in Canada. And therefore, I would like to give all privilege to you for 20 minutes. So you're going to talk about social media coverage of Islam in Canada. Please welcome Professor Slimi.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to share a screen, and just if possible, the host could disable me. I would like to share a PowerPoint so I can be probably faster. Would that be possible?
Yep. You can share materials on PPT.
I would like to share the PowerPoint.
Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Please. Just put on the share screen.
Okay, 1 second, please. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Assalamualaikum. Saya banyak bahagia untuk menjadi di sini dengan kalian. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for having me. It's always pleasure to join you and always pleasure to partake in your conferences as we did in Ramadan last time. Thank you again. It's wonderful to share the platform with a prominent scholar whom I look up to, and I read his books. Professor Esposito, we met in the past in Canada a while ago, and I know you travel a lot, so it's been a while. Again, I would like to tackle the actual topic, and at the end I'll give some Canadian examples. I know it's very challenging, 20 minutes to cover this topic. Da'wah is our passion. Da'wah is a wonderful thing that we do. It's about information and communication. And basically, I would talk about 4 points. Communication, Islamic Da'wah, and I'll briefly touch on it because most of you are experts in Da'wah, but for the sake of our students, just to create that context and understanding what we mean by Da'wah here. And modern information technology, briefly, this is the main challenge because this is the context, a siyaq. This is what defines the topic, Da'wah versus the technology, and the challenges and opportunities. And I will give some practical solutions with examples from our experience here in North America. Basically, as you know, Da'wah, what do we mean by Da'wah here? It's basically Da'wah is an information or invitation. So when we speak of Da'wah, it's information and an invitation to all that is good in the world. So when we speak of Da'wah, the way we understand it, and even according to the Quranic concept of Da'wah, وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. Khayr, good. He didn't say يَدْعُونَ إِلَى Allah. They call to Allah. So calling to Allah is only one aspect of it. It is all Da'wah to all what that is good. So we mean by Da'wah the general concept of all that is good. Fighting poverty is Da'wah, and calling to helping someone is Da'wah, and so on and so forth. We're not going to spend time on ruling of Da'wah. This is a religious obligation, whether in the Quran and Sunnah, and of course, Da'wah, special Da'wah is to Allah and Islam, but general Da'wah, which is very challenging, which puts us in the global context, as we share many issues. Look at the reaction in North America and the world to racism. People are talking about racism because America is leading the world and leading the social media, Facebook, and even this Zoom and Twitter and all of this are coming from the US. And people are reflecting. Look at the power of social media in making us think and tackle issues that they want. In some cultures, they are taboo. Now everybody's talking about racism, which is unfortunately, even in Muslim societies, is a reality. And this is how you could see Da'wah is not the traditional special Da'wah. We're talking about issues that are deep and of concern to many people. Da'wah ila al-khair, as per the Quran, it's clearly, the Quran states that Da'wah to good, even as a higher and a larger circle than the Da'wah to Allah, as I mentioned. We have the traditional means, as alluded to earlier. We have the traditional speech, direct or via, audio, video means, written material, role modeling, one-on-one, friendship and sincere love, fellowship and daily encountering. The modern is subliminal Da'wah, which is a most impactful Da'wah. In my opinion, pop culture, which is extremely important, internet and social media, which actually showcase a lot of this subliminal and pop culture. And then you have social Da'wah through social work and community development. In Indonesia, you have, for instance, Dompet Du'afa. I have attended many of their programs in Hong Kong and in Indonesia. That's an amazing Da'wah. And they're using social media to showcase their work. Volunteer work in general, interfaith dialogue, and philanthropy, which I would refer to later as part of the best da'wah, as an example here in Canada. What is the second component of our talk here is modern information technology. Technology has enabled us to complete more tasks in less time, and oftentimes with less effort and more productivity. As said earlier by Professor Esposito, you know, attention span is an issue. We have a generation that does not want to listen to long lectures. This is the case for my children, your children, anywhere in the world. The attention span, short and sweet, as they say. And now it's getting shorter and shorter to subliminal messaging. And this is where competition is. And this is where our da'wah in general as Muslims need to be updated. Social media is computer-based technology that facilitates the sharing of ideas, thoughts, and information through the building of virtual networks and communities. By design, social media is internet-based and gives users quick electronic communication of contacts. There is no movement in the world and the history that has been so powerful, you know, canvassing and lobbying people, whether the elections of Obama, you know, President Obama, you know, owed it a lot to social media. And today's modern, you know, whether with the tweeting of Donald Trump or, you know, his opponents, social media is so powerful to bring the largest masses to a certain platform, you know, or changing ideas. Social media is also is most of the time unprofessional. This is the reality. Very unprofessional, unfair, and unbalanced. And this is when we define the context of Islam. It's very unprofessional when it tackles Islam. I'm a victim of unprofessional media. You know, I have to fight. I have to check being a person who works for Islam, whether as imam or as professor, as a teacher, as a social activist. I am a victim, you know, of, you know, sometimes defamation through social media, and you can't fight it. Once in there in the internet, it's in the internet. So what are the ways we fight it? I'm going to share some of that. Unfair most of the time and unbalanced, and Islam is the first victim, you know, more than myself or anybody else. Social media can be very damaging and difficult to repair. We know many cases. You're very aware of personalities that were damaged, literally damaged by social media. Their livelihood is damaged because of social media. However, social media is an opportunity for da'wah in Islamic communication, so long as it follows the essential guidelines and prescribed methodology. This is why we suggest that hybrid of bring the Islamic information, update it, and use the social media. So hence, we have what we call challenges and opportunities. What are the challenges? Challenges mainly, I like the fact that Professor Esposito mentioned and referred to the polls, especially PEW polls, and I'll touch on them briefly. I removed the slides as he was talking because I don't need to go over the numbers, especially the numbers from 2001 and 2011 and recent, you know, 2017 PEW polls, you know, Pew as we know them. Islamophobia, traditional shows challenges. We're still doing traditional and social media, you know, an image of Islam. Lack of coordination, lack of resources. These are the challenges. How do we deal with this? But however, the very challenges are creating opportunities. Islamophobia is coming with this is a globalization. So globalization, in as much as it's seen as negative, it has allowed Islam actually to reach the farther horizons. So there are people who come to you, I heard negative things about Islam. Because of globalization, we are able actually to correct. Traditional social media, now we have internet and social media, we can actually give the right information. The image of Islam, the negative image of Islam, we have the Muslim awareness. People are aware, you know, of this. This is, the history repeats itself. People heard things about Prophet Muhammad. It actually appealed to them to go to Mecca and find out. We have many stories in our tradition, and basically people are searching, you know, in 9/11, for instance, we heard, oh, many people are, the shelves are empty in Indigo and chapters, especially here in North America. You can't find the Quran. Unfortunately, as Dr. Esposito said earlier, you can't find the real, I would say, agreed upon or somehow popular in the Muslim world translation of the Quran. Usually when you go to this mainstream, bookstores, they feature books that are unknown to us, and usually they're controversial. Again, technology is an opportunity, and education tools and venues. So image of Islam, for instance, and Muslims, these are the problem, negative in 2001. It even got worse in 2011, and it's even worse, for instance, here in North America with our conservative government. It got very worse, and even a former prime minister, not this current one, he even criticized Islam and used the word Islamism, versus also Donald Trump recently. The defamation of Islam, global terrorism, unfortunately, is damaging the image of Islam, and injustices that are happening in the world, especially in the Muslim world, under the guise of Islam. Our esteemed professor from Nigeria did mention Boko Haram, and of course, these things are featured in Hollywood movies and documentaries as a proof this is what Islam is, and that we, the minorities living in the West, are looked at as we using what they call, taqiyya, which is a concept which is alien to us, at least mainstream Islam. We don't, this taqiyya, that we're hiding the true Islam, and these are featuring the real Islam, whereas the Muslims like us in the West are actually using taqiyya. We're not actually revealing the thorns of Islam as put by some people. Now, here's we'll move to the last point, some practical solutions. We can uphold the traditional principles of Islamic communication. We need to modernize and of course our tools of da'wah. We need to turn challenges into opportunities, and social media strategies with some examples. So of course, essentials of da'wah, remember, they remain the same, they are known to us with our akhlaq, with our wisdom, and of course, they are known, al-hiwar, which is good debate, beautiful preaching, wisdom, and knowledge, as referred to in Surah An-Nahl, Surah chapter number 16, verses 125. This is the illumination. This is the guide. Even on the platform of social media, this should be our guide. Unfortunately, some of the Muslims who want to do da'wah, they are lowering their standards, compromising these essentials, unfortunately, and to do da'wah. There is even websites, and I don't want to mention the specific website, that this person or this group call themselves da'wah somewhere in Europe. You probably are familiar with them, that they are leading da'wah, and a lot of youth are going that same way, but there is no wisdom, there is no knowledge, and unfortunately, they call it street da'wah, and it's not following these essentials, and it's going to bring on the long term a lot of damage to Islamic da'wah. Knowledge is key here. Knowledge, whether knowledge of the religion or religion of the cultures of the people, knowledge of the people is very important, and the cultures and all of this. Wisdom is very important. I will not focus on this, but wisdom doesn't matter. Al-hikmah dalatul mu'min, and when you are, as I said earlier, in social media, everything is there except wisdom. So we have to be very careful. We have to reflect the universal principles and beauty of Islam, of course, through the many good things that Muslims do, whether it's khidmah, whether justice, all of these things, and displaying the beauty of Islam through arts and sciences and contribution. There are many good things out there. But definitely we need modernization, and I have taught a couple semesters in your esteemed faculty, the master's level, for 2 semesters, and I was very proud of your students and your approach and how you accommodated me and accommodated, actually, I taught one course on da'wah, but one course also on social skills and how we can bring social skills and emotional intelligence into da'wah, and it was a very good experience. and soft skills as well, as I said earlier. Turning challenges, as I mentioned earlier, social media strategy with examples. And I don't know how much time I have, but I'll go. This is my last slide. I believe this is my last slide. And this positive messaging through storytelling. We have wonderful stories that right now I saw the impact of stories. Just storytelling by Muslims is very powerful. When you are sharing a story, this is what we do in Canada. We have a nice story, especially in Ramadan or different events where there is attention and Muslims under the spotlight. We share stories, whether a story of sharing food to the community, whether a story of helping someone, but in general, storytelling is very powerful in the real life, but through social media, could be in a form of video or a post, but short posts, not long ones. Strong presence in the pop culture and social arena. The presence of some Muslims in Hollywood or in the comedy show, you know, very important to share the Islamic perspective. Right now about racism, we have some comedians, I don't want to mention names, they are more impactful and more reaching to the masses because of their status, and they have gained credibility in the comedy, and they have become popular. They are actually disseminating more positive messages about Islam than one imam in a masjid or a professor in a university. They have more impact. Showcasing our social work and acts and events of contribution to society. My organization, Faith of Life Network, we have made it since 2005 an obligation either to open rooms in hospitals, sponsors hospitals. Here in Canada, we are actually the religious organization that is the most supportive of the 4th best cancer research center in the world. The lobby now of Princess Margaret Hospital and Cancer Research Center, we in partnership we're sponsoring through actually raising funds for this center. This is the best da'wah. This is the best Islamic communication that I find. And also we sponsor, shelters, women's shelter. These are things we do that have contributed in changing the image of Islam in Canada. And of course, Muslim involvement in mainstream social issues. You know, Black Lives Matter until recently had a very negative image. They managed to change it. They have, many Muslims now involved in it, Muslims involved in protests, Muslims involved in posting messages that are anti-racist, and this is part of Islam. Now we have the opportunity to showcase the anti-racism in Islam. Again, sharing success stories of Muslim individuals. Coordination. This is what Dr. Esposito mentioned, CARE. There are organizations like the National Council of Canadian Muslims, NCCM, is actually coordinating the messages. We used to have, just when 9/11 happened, we had more than 120 press releases by Muslims in Canada, which were at that time less than 1 million. But now we have 1 or 2 press releases by the National Council of Canadian Muslims because they are coordinating messaging, and we share that whether on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or what's the other one? Twitter. We share. This coordination is very important. And education of Muslims, which is last but not least. This is where we need to educate our Muslim, which I call intra-education or intra-information by Muslim experts, both in religion communication. We hold seminars just specifically for da'wah and how we use social media platforms. And these are very important. Before we give da'wah outside, we need to have intra-da'wah, educating our people more about these issues. And last but not least, as I wrap up with the beautiful verse from Surah Ibrahim, where Allah says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ لِيُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ فَيُضِلُّ اللَّهُ مَن يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. And we never sent a messenger save with the language of his folk, that he might make the message clear for them. And this ayah, very important. Lisan here, as many of you know, is not only the language, but also the ways and means. And one of them is social media, if used wisely. and of course with hikmah, with wisdom, with knowledge, and of course collectively with messaging that is well studied and coordinated, I think we can be successful. I'm very optimistic, whether it's social media, whether the way we're going, I think things are getting more and more positive in spite of all the negativity we're facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hamid Slimi. Well, you mentioned the concept of da'wah is actually enjoining good. And you also offer a very great idea that we have to transform the activities of da'wah from traditional da'wah to a modern da'wah. And also your opinion, I think, is in line with what has been explained by Professor Esposito in terms of globalization, where there are challenges and also opportunities. Anti-Islam, Islamophobia, image of Islam and Muslims that have been deteriorated by the mass media and social media. And also over Muslims have to take opportunities and also active involvement in some social activities. And also you also open that there has to be an internal da'wah before we conduct external da'wah. And da'wah has to be conducted on the basis of al-hikmah, or wisdom, and al-maw'idat al-hasana, beautiful preaching, and wajadilhum billati ahsan, and debate with the ways that are the best. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Professor Slimi, for your eloquent explanation. And ladies and gentlemen, I think I have to give my privilege as moderator to my colleague, Kang Dadi Darmadi. Kang, could you please take it over? Thank you. Kang Dadi.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much for unmuting me now. So much, Bapak Suparto, PhD, our beloved Dean of the Faculty of Communication and Da'wah at State Islamic University, Jakarta, Syarif Hidayatullah. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm very delighted to now introduce to you our next speaker, who actually does not need any introduction because he's very popular both in Indonesia and the United States. Dr. Imam Shamsi Ali is a prominent Indonesian Muslim scholar known for promoting interfaith dialogue among Abrahamic religions in the United States. He has written many books, and he himself is a very prolific da'wah speaker and public speaker. And he's the chairman of the Al-Hikmah Mosque in New York, as well as currently the director of Jamaica Muslim Center in Queens, New York, one of the biggest mosques in the United States. And last but not least, he's the president of the Nusantara Foundation, a Da'wah organization in the US. He's one of the 7 religious figures, the most influential 7 religious figures in New York, for being so active in inter-religious communities. And for that activities, he was given, and he's the recipient of the 2009 Ellis Island Medal of Honor Award. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Bapak Imam Shamsi Ali for his presentation. Silakan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dadi. After listening to our prominent speakers, professors, and particularly from Professor John Esposito here in the State and Professor Slimi in Canada, I don't know if anything else left to say. But I'm very much honored to be a part of these wonderful panel discussions, be among prestigious panelists to talk about da'wah communication in the United States of America. And certainly I have to acknowledge that Dr. Slimi mentioned quite a lot that basically I wanted to say, so I'm going to be even shorter than I prepared for. Let me begin by saying that da'wah basically have been misunderstood both by some Muslims and particularly our non-Muslim friends, that da'wah is to convert the people. Da'wah never been intended to convert the people, because in Islam we don't know the word conversion. There is no such anywhere in the Quran we found that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to invite the people to Islam. Dr. Slimi mentioned about da'wah ila khair, but also in the Holy Quran, mostly mentioned da'wah ila Allah or da'wah fi ila sabil rabbik, ud'u ila sabil rabbika bil hikmah, wa man ahsanu qawlan mimma da'a ila Allah. So never been mentioned that we invite the people to become Muslims or to convert them to Islam. I think there are many reasons why is that. Number one, certainly because faith is a personal matter. There's no one can involve but the person and God Almighty. So we do believe in Islam that no one has the right to give any guidance to anybody but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And secondly, we do believe that faith is not to be imposed. Like ikraha fi Deen is a very prominent notion in Islam. So Islam basically is focusing on the essence of the teaching rather than formality. This is the first point I'd like to underline. The second point is that Islam, as Professor Esposito and Slimi mentioned about globalized world, Islam basically is the most prepared religion to enter into this globalized world. And I think it can be began by looking into the teaching of Islam, which is very much universal in nature. The concept of God is Rabbul Alameen, Rabbul Nas, Malikin Nas, Ilahin Nas. So we may be locally Muslims, but our mindset must be a globalized mindset. So we are the most prepared basically to enter into this globalized world. And of course, as we are talking about global world, the most important characteristic of globalized world is about speed. And I'm talking about communicational speed. I'm talking about the advancement of technology and science. And so our da'wah also is in need of this. And so this is the second point. So we are very much prepared to enter into this globalized world. The third point, I think Islamophobia had been mentioned earlier by our speakers. I just wanted to remind you that Islamophobia is not a new phenomenon in the world and particularly in the Western society. Many of our Indonesian brothers and sisters misunderstand that Islamophobia began with the 9/11. In fact, Islamophobia is way before 9/11. If I may say that 9/11 basically is just the pinnacle, possibly some Americans possibly think or thought that they got the justification that Islam had been accused being as a violent religion, the religion of terrorism, and now America is being attacked by terrorists and so-called Muslims who attacked the United States of America. So it was a pinnacle. I leave this because I have been here in this country always a few years before 9/11. So I know that it was tremendously difficult and challenging for us as Muslims living in the States post the 9/11. But Islamophobia is not began by the 9/11. In fact, Professor Esposito mentioned about the Iranian revolutions, and way before Iranian revolution, basically the image of Islam in America and in the Western society in general had been so damaged particularly by the media. And so Islamophobia is not a new phenomenon, bukan barang baru in America and in the Western society in general. Now coming to my own topic basically is about how to communicate da'wah in America. I think once again, Professor Slimi mentioned quite a lot, similar, almost the same thing that I'm going to say, but I wanted to shift a little bit so I don't have to repeat what had been said by Professor Slimi. So I'm going back to the traditional discussion about da'wah itself and how to present da'wah in general and particularly in the United States of America. I think the first one is the importance of having self-confidence. The challenge is prominent, but also on the other side, temptation is so high. And so a da'i must have a self-confidence. And self-confidence must be based on the yaqeen of the truth that we believe in, al-haq that we believe in. If we have half-heartedly believing in the truth that we are conveying, then it doesn't work. And it reminds us about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when the kuffar of Quraysh came to his uncle, Abu Talib, and they asked him what Muhammad wanted in his life. If he wanted to become the rich, we make him the richest one. If he wanted to become a king, we make him king. If he wants to marry the most beautiful woman, we find him the most beautiful woman in the city to marry. What he wants, but let him stop doing what he's doing. And when Abu Talib is conveying that to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, if they were to put the sun to my right hand and the moon to my left hand, I will not ignore this. I'm not going to continue the story. The story here represents the importance of self-confidence in conveying the da'wah or making da'wah in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's very important that we have that self-confidence. This is number one. Number two, we must have positive view on every single human being. We believe in Islam that everybody is possessing what's so-called fitrah, the purity, the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On that very nature of purity, every human was created by Allah. Fitrat Allah allati fatara an-nas 'alayha la tabdila li khalqillah. Borrowing the language of our Jewish and Christian friends, fitra is similar when they say that every human is created on the image of God. So everyone is representing that purity, and because of that, every single human being deserves honor and dignity. And that's why we Muslims certainly consider racism and putting down people on the basis of race or ethnicity is evil itself, because it's against our human nature that is representing the nature of God or the purity of God. Now, when we convey the message of Allah, that we have to have this in mind, that we must respect every single human being. Everyone has the opportunity, a chance to be best and to be better. Everyone knows Umar Allahu anhu, that before he became a Muslim, he was so ignorant, to such an extent that Umar was so strong physically that in time that he was angry, if he doesn't find any opponent, he just cut off the neck of any camels, because he was so ignorant. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed him. And that story itself tells very clearly that when we are dealing with our non-Muslim friends, to show Islam, to tell them Islam, again, not to make them Muslims, because we can now, and we are not able to do that, we keep in mind that they are representing the purity of God, and they have that opportunity. Possibly, you know, that the majority of those who came to Islam, particularly before the 9/11, are those who are prisoners, and particularly our African American brothers and sisters. And the reason is because they found that opportunity in Islam, that they can be embraced back into the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they are still possessing the purity. This is number two. Number three, Professor Slimi mentioned about the importance of knowledge, and not certainly yes. And Islam, if I may say this, and it's not a pride, but this is mentioned by even Karen Armstrong, for example. I had an opportunity to be on the same stage. And she said, I asked her basically, sorry to get out a little bit from the topic. I asked her, Karen, if all religions are food, because you know all type of food, which food is the most delicious to you? Is it Christian food, or Jewish food, or Hindu food, or Catholic foods, or Muslims food? And she said, I'm still learning the recipe. And then she said, but I have to be honest, that the most rational teaching is Islam. And so my point here, that in order for us to present Islam, we need a rational approach. And what we are seeing around the world, particularly in the Muslim lands, many of those who are preaching Islam are being so dogmatic. You know, I'm not talking about our non-Muslim friends. We're talking about our own Muslims, particularly young generation. When we listen to them, it looks like we don't have any hope anymore. We are all in hell. It's so difficult. And so we need to be rational, to have that rational approach. Okay, let me mention this story in New York City. One day, a PhD student from New York University came to our mosque, and she is an Indian American. And she said to me, I thought she was joking. She said to me, Imam, if you can tell me something unique in your faith, in your religion, I will become a Muslim. So I said to her, we Muslims believe in one God. She said, no. We Hindu, because she's a Hindu, we Hindu people believe also in one God. So I said to her, how about those idols? She said, those idols are not God. Those idols are representation of the many aspects of God, but there's only one God. So I thought in my mind that she is very smart. So I said to her, are you an American? She said, yes, I'm an American. This is Obama time at that time. If you wanted to meet Barack Obama, your president, which one is the best way? Go directly without any intercession. You don't need secretary, you don't need security, you don't need appointment. Just go at any time. Or you have to go through all these protocols. She said, go directly. I said to her, that is the uniqueness in Islam. Because if you want to meet our Lord and worship our Lord, communicating with our Lord, I can go directly. Muhammad is not an intercession for me. I don't have to pray in the name of Muhammad. Muhammad had come to teach me how to communicate with my God. And because of that rational approach, and I consider his kindergarten argument, she became a Muslim because of that. So it is very important that we have that rational approach. This is number 3. Number 4, brothers and sisters, all religious faiths have commonalities. And that's why for me personally, I don't like to debate. And many people say, why you don't debate? I know I don't like debate. I like dialogue. Because debating people means that you're trying to find the shortcomings and the mistakes, and you're trying to win. But commonality it means that we are going to connect the good dots in each community. And all religions have good in common and good. So my experience, for example, the Jewish rabbi, I still remember in 2004, after the passing of the Pope John II, I was invited by CBS television to an interview about Pope John's interfaith outreach from a non-Christian perspective. In the studio, there was a Jewish rabbi, and I extended my hand to shake. He shook hands with me, but he didn't want to see my face. So finally, at the end of the interview, we exchanged cards. 6 months later, he called me and said, Imam, I wanted to meet with you. So we met. And the first question I reminded him, why you didn't want to see my face in the studio? And he was so honest. He said 2 reasons. Number 1, because I did not, past tense, I did not like Muslims. And number 2, I was not sure that you were Muslims because of that stereotypical mind that Muslims must be like my brother, Professor Slimi, like must be an Arab. If you're not an Arab, it means, looks like you're not a Muslim, or at least you're less in Iman. So he didn't think that I was a Muslim, and that's why he didn't want to see me. So I said to him, why didn't you ask me to meet? He said, because I've seen you several times on television, and looks like you're a good ambassador for your own faith tradition. So I wanted to ask some questions. So he asked question, I asked him one question. And my question is, what does it mean to be chosen people in the Jewish concept? And he explained beautifully. He said that, because we do believe that God has trusted us or entrusted us to represent the unity, the oneness of God, the monotheistic concept of religion. So I say, we Muslims are more chosen than you because number 1, we do believe in Moses, as we do believe in Jesus, but also we believe in Muhammad. Well, you don't believe in Jesus and Muhammad, so we are more chosen than you. So my point here is that there are some commonalities that we can connect. And that's why since then we engage in dialogue, and alhamdulillah, we wrote a book called Sons of Abraham, Issues Divide and Unite Muslims and Jews, forward by President Bill Clinton. So this is point number 4. When we convey the message of Islam, try not to dig down into differences. I still remember a Catholic priest came to an Imam in New York City,
And that Imam, the first one that he told him is all ayat of the Holy Quran that criticize our Christian friends. So he felt deeply offended. Why you don't say that we Muslims don't believe unless we believe in Jesus? We Muslims don't believe if you don't respect the mother of Jesus. In fact, the Holy Quran says you will find the Christian people are so close to you. The closest person, the most, closest person to you. And when he smiled, then we can talk about differences. But my point is, it is very important to advance commonalities rather than differences. The last point before the very last one is, and this is the most important point here for us Muslims particularly, that da'wah means matching words and actions. And it means in Arabic language, al-qudwa is deeply needed in the work of da'wah. Imam Hamza Yusuf, one of the prominent Imam in the United States, he became a Muslim in 1976. But one of the things that he repeated everywhere, that he said this, Alhamdulillah, thank God, that I have met Islam before meeting any Muslims in my life. And he was asked, what do you mean, Imam? He said, because if I have met Muslims before meeting Islam, possibly I could have, been confused, because, and that is the reality, that we Muslims fail to represent the beauty of Islam. And if you want to make da'wah, it means that you haven't established al-qudwa, the role model. Imam Slimi mentioned about how we Muslims are playing an important role at the moment. In time that America is deeply divided racially, Muslims presenting themselves that we are bridges. Because in Islam, we don't see anybody superior in the name simply because of the skin color. In time that is, white supremacy is on the rise in America, we present ourselves not to, that we're hating the white people, because Islam embraced every single human being. So Islam had to be presented as a solution. And that's what we are trying to do here in America. And that's a part and most important part of da'wah. Islamophobia, of course, is on the rise, particularly that at the moment is being supported by political power, the presidents in the White House. I used to say in the past, Islamophobia used to be on the street because people don't know what Islam is all about. But now Islamophobia is getting out from the White House. But alhamdulillah, because of that commonality that we have, in 2017, I'd like to end with this. In 2017, I organized possibly the largest rally and demonstrations against the Muslims banned by Donald Trump. Over 10,000 people came out from their houses, going to Times Square in New York City saying, today I'm a Muslim too. And that's because we have a common. And nowadays, the Jewish people feel that they're being attacked, and Muslims also feel being attacked. And so we connect. Although we have a very different view about Middle East, but we have a commonality here in the United States. So I think these are some points that I'd like to mention, and hopefully we can have more an opportunity during the Q&A, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for unmuting me again. Well, thank you so much, Imam Shamsi Ali, for your wonderful presentation. I have highlighted some of your points made during your presentation. At least 3 of them, I think this is a very important messages for all of us, that the basic principles in Islamic communication, Islamic dawah, is that faith is not to be imposed to others. Islam in a globalized world need to work together. Muslims all over the world, including with interfaith dialogue. Dialogue is a key concept. He mentioned he didn't like the debate, but he liked dialogue more, which is a very important message. And number 3 is that Islamophobia is not a new phenomenon. And many people, including in Indonesia, misunderstood this, that as though Islamophobia happened right after 9/11 or something happened in the United States. And he mentioned about a few other things very important as well. But I would like to continue the, would like to invite the next speaker, our brother from Turkey actually, but he lives in Malaysia, Mr. Yusuf Kara, LCMA. He's the manager of the Nursi Research Center, Research Training Center, or NRTC, based in Malaysia, in International Islamic University of Malaysia. And he's currently the representative of Turkey's Hayrat Foundation. And for many, many years, he has been in the translation board member of, as well as he worked for the Bediüzzaman Said Nursi Center in Malaysia. Without further ado, I would like to invite Brother Yusuf Kara for your presentation.
Thank you very much, dear Professor. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I greet everyone with the salam of Allah, and I wish a beneficial results and success of this program. Alhamdulillah, there are a huge number of participants from across the world, and we are honored by the prominent speakers from across the world. And I would like to express my special thanks to Her Excellency, the Rector, and the Deputy Rector, and the Dean, inviting myself to this program. And as the most, I should say, humble speaker among very experienced and very prominent speakers in the conference, I'm very delighted and honored to be a part of this program. And of course, today we are speaking about a very important issue that concerns the entire humanity, that is even beyond the spheres of religions. But of course, we are doing da'wah and we are believing in a God, and we are all aspiring and struggling for the goodness of the humanity as a whole. And today we are talking about social media as a medium, as a means to make this da'wah to our aim, that is to invite people to the khair, and that is to invite people to the path of Allah. That is for the goodness of people both in this world and in akhirah. Actually, this is because of the compassion that is inherent in the human beings, and this compassion is actually stimulated and exposed with the teachings of Islam, so that we aspire to help the people, not just for their world, but also for their eternal world, that is the real and ultimate world. And of course, as I just said, social media being the medium of this great purpose of our lives, and also we should also talk about, and today I'm going to focus on quoting from the life of a very important Islamic scholar, that is Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. I'm going to talk a little bit more on the methodology of da'wah and the problems, the contemporary problems that we are facing today, and how Bediüzzaman Said Nursi tackled with those problems, and what he is proposing to us to present them to the humanity as a solution for the contemporary problems. Of course, we are faced by two dimensions of problems, we should say. One is theoretical and one is practical. If we ask to the people, especially like when we ask to the Muslims, let's say, initially, basically there are a lot of problems, in our lives, in terms of our ibadat, our worship, and also in terms of our moral life, our social life. There are a lot of problems. And then this is basically the practical problems and practical realm of the problems. But on the other side, there is a theoretical one, and that is related to our iman, right? That is related to our iman and our reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And especially when we are facing any problem in the practical dimension, we should go back and check the theoretical background of the issue. And this is in everything, right? In everything, this is the same. So we should actually link the people with a God, so that people can have a prosperous life in this world and in akhirah. And especially Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, who is a very important scholar. Just to mention about him a few words. He was born in 1877 in Turkey, actually in late Ottoman, and passed away in 1960. And he witnessed the late time of Ottoman, the collapse of Ottoman Empire, Ottoman state, and the new Turkey. So actually he witnessed he lived in a very important timeline, and he lived in a very important land and country. And he himself, in terms of his scholarly qualifications, he himself mastered not only Islamic sciences, but also modern sciences that was available in his time. He had access to books that was coming from Europe, the translations and everything. So he mastered the positive sciences, modern sciences of his time as well. He memorized 90 volumes of books, and some of them are technical books, literary books, and Islamic books. And he repeated them every 90 days. And he made them a means to go up to the level of the Quran, to understand the deep messages in the Quran. And also, like, he, for example, memorized Quran in 15 days. So he had an extraordinary memory and mind. So this is why he was even called, named by the scholars of his time as Badi'uz Zaman. This is the title that was given to him. It means the unique of the time. And he was a person that was also influential politically, socially as well. Like, he was addressing thousands of people in Damascus. He was addressing people in Balkans next to the Sultan of his time, and he was delivering a 2 hours of speech. He was meeting the sultans of Ottoman to address the problems of Turkey, of Ottoman. But of course, when the conditions in Turkey changed, he also changed his methodology. And then he actually made 2 very important problem diagnoses that actually concerns not only Muslims, but actually everyone in the world. Number 1, non-belief or atheism is now coming from, actually previously it was because of ignorance, because like in Muslim societies or in religious societies, when people had misinformation, so they were inclining to atheism or having some doubts about religion, whatever the religion is. But now atheism is coming from science and philosophy. It doesn't mean that we are, denying and we don't want science, no, but it has its philosophy, of course, it has its discourse. That is why we should be very particular about science and philosophy. And secondly, this is we should say the theoretical dimension, that is about Iman. And secondly, the practical dimension of the problem is about the amal, about the actions of human beings. That is, people have become more of living what they believe in, but living what they want to do, what they feel like. So now we are especially living in, so when we say this to especially Muslims, because now as Muslims or as believers, we know that there are certain things that we should do, certain rituals that we should do, or there's a certain morality that we should abide by, but we are not doing it. And we are believing in Akhirah, we are believing in Jannah and Jahannam, but we don't act the way we believe. So this is because actually we know it by heart, we know it by mind, and we believe in it by ruh, but still there is a problem. The problem is the emotions and the self-nafs, the emotions are being attracted by the world, right? By the glamorous pleasures and ornaments of the world. And especially in the modern days today, we are being actually confronted by this challenge of the gratification of ourselves, of our souls and nafs. So this is why Bediüzzaman Said Nursi was trying to make our emotions actually come to its senses and to make the mind again overwhelm the emotions. And now we are living in postmodern and post-truth times in which people don't believe in realities anymore. Already the religion has been left in majority of the world, even in Muslim countries. People are just religious by name. If you look at Europe, if you look at even a lot of Muslim countries, including my country, the number of atheists are, non-believers are increasing. And people have a lot of, doubts about their religious, ideas, etc. So what is needed is actually, in order to, go back to the roots of the problem, we should address the roots of Islam. That is, So actually we are being confronted by, once again, two challenges. The first challenge is now science, as we are all studying it in our schools, right? From our early childhood up until we become adults, our minds are being formed in a way that we are learning the universe, the physical universe, in the science classes that we are all learning from actually a kind of atheist perspective. There is no God. They don't even necessarily say that there is no God, and they don't also say there is a God, but the science has a discourse that doesn't talk about science, that it doesn't talk about God. It just talks about, I'll actually connect this to the use of social media. There is a great link between the two. So actually today, in the schools, our mind is formed in a way that, for example, we are learning about the rain in a way that the rain is being formed on its own, right? Because of evaporation and because of the winds, the clouds are moving, and because of, again, gravity, because of moisture, right? The raindrops are coming down, and then because of gravity, again, through the rivers, they're flowing into the seas and oceans once again, and the cycle is going on. So there is no God here. So this is actually talking about just the natural order. There is no God here. But we should change the discourse of these science classes to a way that actually, yes, physically and mechanically, this is how it happens. But actually, this is a compassionate activity. We need water, and we get the water from unconscious beings, merciless beings. Those things, they don't know us. So what we should do, we should change the discourse of the science classes to a way that actually we should link the actions to the agent behind it, because it is a merciful activity. It requires a merciful agent. It is a knowing activity. It requires an endlessly knowledgeable agent. It is a action of power. It requires a powerful. It requires a very endlessly willing being, an essence behind it. And this way, in every science class, we are going to link any student with the God. So that person will not be disconnected from the God in the science classes. So it is not only the masajid, it is not only the places of religion that we should try to connect the people with God, but it is actually the schools themselves up until the end of university education and further, that people, whatever they study, because they're studying the book of the Creator. So they should always, the reference should be made from the book of the Creator to the Creator itself. So it is not just the Quran, or it is not just the the books, the religious books that are actually connecting us to Allah. It is actually the book of universe. That is the book itself, and that's the book of creation, and it is the book of speech. So we should know about the Creator, right? We should increase our knowledge about the Creator through two means. One is through increasing our knowledge from the religious sources. That is actually theoretical. And the other one is practical. That is through our eyes, what we see. And we as human beings, we know somebody in our life in two ways. Number one, we know that person through his words or other people's statements about that word. And second, we know about that person through our personal observations of the actions of that person. When we combine the two information, one is practical and observational, the other one is theoretical. When we combine these two, so now we have the complete information about that person. Now we can develop a certain understanding about that person. Either we will love that person or we will hate that person. So then the emotion will be developed for that person. So and then after that, we can also do sacrifices. We can do something for that person because we love that person quite much. So now we are talking about linking ourselves with the Creator so that we listen to his orders, so that the society become a good society. But how to do that? The current modern world is quite disconnected. The science classes that we are all learning is disconnecting. The physical life is disconnecting. So many things are like disconnecting ourselves in our hearts, in our practical life. So how to connect ourselves? It is very abstract and very kind of impossible. Actually, it is not. It is actually everywhere that the Creator actually being manifested. So actually, after someone steps into Islam or into religion, so now he should look at the creation of the Creator while reading the revelation of scriptures, the Quran, and at the same time, which is the speech of the Creator. And at the same time, he should look at the actions of the same Creator. So just like we were dealing with the person, right? Looking, listening to the information. and looking at the actions. So now we should listen to the Quran, we should listen to the Hadith, and also we should see how the Creator acts in the universe. So this way we will have a theoretical and a practical. Actually, the Quran itself is also asking us to look at the universe to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should now combine the two dimensions of knowledge, and we should have a complete knowledge about, or we should have a better knowledge about the Creator. Now we can go up to the level of love, muhabba, towards that Creator. And when somebody has a love and feeling towards that Creator, now he can feel a pleasure for the things that he will do for that person. Now I'm coming to a point. Today, people in the world, we are all living for pleasure, especially physical pleasure, because we are all disconnected from spirituality. People are living for pleasure, whatever pleasure it is. Of course, psychological pleasure is which we can say an abstract pleasure. So the real pleasure, now Sayyidina says, the real pleasure lies in Iman and in obedience to God. Because with Iman, people's ontological, ontological and existential crises are actually being resolved. Because maybe people are taking some pleasure while they're eating something and they're enjoying themselves outside, but when they have a sickness, when their friends pass away, or when they think about their personal death, all of these existential ontological things that will happen one day, or that happens, so they create a crisis within that person. But through the glasses of Iman, it is explained why this is taking place. Because according to that person, for example, sickness is something evil. But according to Iman, with the understanding of faith, sickness, Allah has good reasons, it's so many good reasons giving the sickness. And actually sickness is good for human being. So death is actually something good. So departure is something good. So when these existential crises that are actually torturing the people are turned into actually beautiful realities, which is the reality, so the life for a human being actually will be something good. So this is actually the way out for every human being, because we are living for pleasure, and the real pleasure lies in Iman and in obedience to Allah, to the Creator. Because when we don't act within the realm of the Creator's orders, then actually we will not do something good that is good for me. So finally, the use of social media is especially important, because nowadays people are all being digitalized, and people are all being faced by the social media. They are being exposed to so many different things, and we all want to do da'wah. We all want to convey the message of Islam, the message of a Creator, and the good messages that this Creator is asking the people to do. And of course, social media is a very important means. So social media, of course, is actually addressing the sense organs, a lot. So, and a true message is conveyed as many sense organs we address, as possible. So, of course, social media, especially the visual media like YouTube and others, are very important in terms of combining people, connecting people, because we are talking about a lot, about ibadah, about amal, about actions in Islam. But as we said, if the problems in the practical realm, if they are too much, we should actually go back to the practical, theoretical sources. That is the connectionship with the Creator. So when this connectionship is once again managed, is linked, then this will be good, because we will know about the Creator and love the Creator. And now we'll be ready to sacrifice ourselves to do something, something good for ourselves and something good for people, and serving for the good of the people. So in order to make this, social media plays an important role, because just as I mentioned, we should not just theoretically, inform the people about Allah is merciful, the God is merciful. No, how merciful He is. The sicknesses are there, the calamities of people and humanity are there, the earthquakes are there, the coronavirus is there. So if the Creator is merciful, then where is He? Why He is not stopping that? So you see, people, maybe they are kind of look convinced and satisfied when you read them from Quran, when you teach them from Islam. But then when they face the reality in the world, it means that their knowledge is still not enough. They're still not satisfied. Okay, so we should supplement with another one, the teachings of Quran, because the Quran itself is also addressing us to look at the universe and study the universe. So we should make contents for social media that will actually tell about to the people, describe the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talk about the sicknesses, in its forms of beauty, talk about the beauty of the universe, talk about how actually rain is being formed by Allah, and that rain is actually a great manifestation of the mercy of the Creator. You know, a baby is being born to a mother, and the milk is being provided in the same second. This is a great mercy of the Creator. And then 2 adult people are being employed to help this, you know, small weak baby. This is a mercy of the Creator. A small animal, while, you know, feeding its baby, is raising its feet, you know, its food. Again, this is a manifestation of the mercy, of the compassion of the Creator. You know, when we look at tell the people about the manifestation in the physical world through the use of social media, then people will be exposed in the world, you know, to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So this way, I hope, and I will conclude with this, we should make the people come to their senses, not just in an abstract manner, you know, talking about Islam to people. Of course, you know, many don't, but also, you know, there is a great need, because people are being very much, you know, engrossed with the physical world and the calamities and everything. And as we said, the science classes are not in a way that improve the iman. Actually, it you know, decreases one's attachment to the Creator, because everything, you know, the classes are just attaching us to the nature itself, right? So now we are accusing the nature, or we are thanking the nature, etc. So this relationship is a very wrong relationship, and it doesn't give, you know, into good results in any person, either Muslim or non-Muslim. So this is why we should try to read the book of universe in the social media. We should make contents in the social media to show the instances of the mercy, to show the instances of the justice of the Creator, to show the instances of the wisdom of the Creator. So when we do so, I hope, inshallah, the social media will be very useful to, you know, to help the people that are actually looking for pleasure in their life, and this pleasure is not possible through just gratification of their physical needs, but actually is possible when people have a transcendental relationship, and when people know the real hikmah, the real wisdom, the real reason for everything that is taking place in the world. And if we don't get the answers to our questions about what is taking place in the world, we cannot make a good connection with the Creator, and we cannot, you know, be actually obedient to the Creator. And when we don't become obedient to the Creator, of course, there will always be chaos in the world. So the issue of, you know, atheism, materialism, positivism should be dealt with using the data of the science today, but looking at the science, just changing our outlook at the science, looking at the science and using the science as a tool to describe the Creator. For example, if I just tell you a very small and practical example, if you now look at my hand, okay, what do you see? Okay,
Excuse me.
Just last answer, and I'm concluding.
Time's over.
Okay, can I?
Yeah, it's a little bit over 25 minutes now, so yeah.
Sorry.
Just have 1 or 2 more minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So today's, I'll just in one simple example, I'll just try to elaborate and just symbolize what today's science is doing. They are like describing my hand. They say 3 fingers are here, 1 finger is here, and 1 finger is staying like this. But they don't tell me what actually this finger is pointing at. So they are describing very well and studying very well today's science, but they don't really focus and look to the side of what this science, what this universe is telling us about. It is actually telling us about and describing a merciful Creator, a powerful Creator, a just Creator. So when we look to the science that we are all studying today from this perspective, every person will be linked to a Creator and will be able to abide by the commandments of the Creator, so that a good and prosperous societies can come into existence.
Well, okay, thank you so much, Brother Yusuf Kara, for your presentation. I think we can hear very clearly the messages that he delivered, especially from special perspective of Sheikh Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, and also the interpretation of his teachings in contemporary world where Muslims actually facing so many challenges, including he mentioned science from very materialistic, atheistic perspective, and how Muslims should change their approaches to science, which include faith and belief in the creator, not just the creation. And one of the most important messages Brother Yusuf just had is that social media is a very powerful and very important means of da'wah to convey the Islamic messages, to convey the message of God and Prophet. And this is also to establish a strong connection and between Iman and the physical life. So a strong connection between faith and science is very important. And sometimes material pleasure and self-gratification are symptoms of disconnection. And this is something that we have to acknowledge, that with the advance and the presence of social media and new technology, so many obstacles for us to focus on something that we learn from nature, as well as from Iman, from belief in God. So I think I cannot highlight all of the important messages from him, but we are very open to have a comment and questions to all the speakers, including Brother Yusuf. But last but not least, we have our last speaker. Let me introduce our very own Professor Andi Faisal Bakti from Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University. He's a professor of communication studies, and he also serves for cooperation at UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta. He holds a master's and PhD from Canada in communication from Université de Montréal, Concordia, and Université de Quebec. And he has been doing research on Islamic communications in England, in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in Thailand, and many other countries. So without further ado, kami persilahkan Profesor Andi Faisal Bakti.
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Dr. Dadi Darmadi, our chair, and Dr. Suparto, who was chairing for the first sessions. And I would like also to thank Professor John L. Esposito for accepting to attend this very important webinar, and of course to our colleague, Professor Hamid Slimi, who has been twice for the last for this period of coronavirus pandemic. And I also remember that you were actually in our faculty a few years ago, and I also and my colleague visited you in Canada, although I didn't manage because I went to Montreal. And of course, our very also popular speaker for this period of pandemic, Dr. Muhammad Shamsi Ali. I think almost every day you are speaking in front of us. They all admire you. They're all happy with your thought, experience, and of course, information that you have shared to us. And our colleagues, Professor Dr. Umar Pate, yeah, we also met last year in Paris, and then many years, almost every year we met. And 2017, you were in Jakarta with us, and so on and so on. And of course, our very young and bright scholar, Yusuf Kara, yeah. Sounds like Yusuf Kala, yeah, our former vice president of Indonesia. Okay, I would like also to thank our rector for opening this webinar. It was very nice words that she delivered to us, and of course, a kind of keynote speech to all this seminar, while introducing with one verse which is very familiar to Muslims. Ya ayuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dzakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum syu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. This is actually a verse of the Quran, very much used in our faculty of communication, because the difference in terms of ethnicity, in terms of sexes, gender, and tribes and nations, but the most important thing is that we have to know each other. And on top of it is taqwa. Taqwa is righteousness. Taqwa is the fear of God. Taqwa is working very seriously, not only in terms of human relations, but also, of course, very important, God and human relations that we call vertical aspects of Islam, at-taqwa, or hablum minallah wa hablum minan nas. Okay, this time I would like to actually to continue what the previous speakers already mentioned, and many of the explanations already been touched, and I don't need to repeat. Yeah, I hope I will be able to speak really quite fast, because this is really midnight. Yeah, I think in East Indonesia is already 12:30, and then we have noticed now that I think 1,500 participants of this webinar, and not only from Indonesia, but also from the United States, North America, in fact from Africa, a lot of them from Africa and Indian subcontinents, and also from Afghanistan, etc. I've noticed here so many participants attending this conference, and many already have posed questions to the previous speaker. So please note it down, and then maybe be prepared to answer some of those important questions. Okay, so the title of this presentation is Virtual Da'wah, Active and Independent Learners and Islamic Messages. We believe that there are two actually learners in terms of communication studies. One is passive learners, and the other one is independent and active learners. So in this case, we would like to touch upon the issue of active learners as opposed to passive learners, because passive learners, these are the people who are normally able to be manipulated because of ignorance, as a previous speakers already also mentioned. The problems, as I noticed in this case, as a result of these active learners, because there is a tendency that loss of religious authority, yeah. So a loss of religious authority due to the active learners of people who would like to know about religion, in particular, in this case, Islamic teaching. So the authority of religion becomes not very important, because everybody can directly study religion from social media, for example, and also reduction of religious absolutism messages. So also active learners can question actually the absolutism of Islamic messages. Yeah. We also notice that there are open criticisms of Da'i or Islamic communicators. Now, any students, any learners are able to criticize opinions or any opinions of Muslim scholars, because they can also compare, they can also cross-check between the opinions of these scholars. And also another problem is hoaxes and versus Islamic messages. Yeah, there are mix of information here. Sometimes it is difficult to distinguish between hoax and true Islamic messages. This is the challenge of Islamic da'wah. And also there is a tendency, as I noticed, commercialization of religion. A lot of people doing business on behalf of Islamic teaching, Islamic da'wah, but actually also they are basically doing commercialization of Islamic teaching. Okay, the next slide, I would like to share that internet level users in Indonesia is quite incredible. We have 272 million people here in this country, is around more than 70 million compared to Nigeria. And just in 2020, there are 175 million internet users. Yeah, compared to 2019, yeah, there has been 17% increase, or 25 million people. So in total, there are 64% of the people of Indonesia have access to cyberspace. And now, since the COVID-19 pandemic, we have noticed that probably there are so many increase in terms of using this cyberspace, using this virtual da'wah for their own individual purposes. Okay, as we notice here, the next slide, that we are social, yeah, digital 2020. Out of these 272 million people, 55% actually urban, yeah. So you can imagine that these people are quite familiar with this modern technology. And also mobile phone connections, there are 338 million, is 124 million, yeah, 24% of the populations have access to these mobile connections. And then 175 million, or 64% penetration, yeah, of this technology. And then in terms of active social media, there are 160 million people, which is close to 60% of the population. So that means that this is a very great opportunity for people who would like to learn about Islam from the internet, from the social media, from any new platform now that are available in the internet. We also have here for the next slides, virtual reality. It is basically a very simple media, although originally it's very sophisticated. I say here is very simple because just clicking, and then you display, and then eventually you manage to find things. So this is basically artificial objects, yeah. This is surrogate tactile audio visual experiences managed by computer, and then you can get information as you will, and then you can compare very easily, particularly for a young generation. This really technology very, very useful to them. So consequently, they are more or less more knowledgeable about Islam compared to other people who really don't access to the internet. Okay, we called it this as active reception model, yeah, for this approach, yeah. That why? Because this actually support decentralization, yeah, of understanding. So it is not centralization of knowledge anymore. Yeah, this can help raising individual awareness. Yeah, of course they can manage their own time to study about Islam, and also there are two directions, not only one direction, monotonic. Yeah, but basically they can ask questions, they can also challenge, they can also correct if they don't understand, they don't agree, for example. And so individual orientation is very strong, and also beyond the control of the situation, and eventually will also create democratization. Yeah. Why? Because new media and active reception basically encourages, next slide, yeah, freedom of expression, yeah, and also interactivity and open messages, basically. And also individuals are very active in finding and interpreting messages. Okay, so the next slide, I would like to see actually the difference opinion among scholars in communication. In terms of theory of information, there are two great theories here. One big theory saying that information coming from inform and action. That means that sender or da'i should be knowledgeable. While the other one says that actually information coming from two words, but in information, meaning that you had to internalize information. That means that you have to be able to understand the information from your own perspective. In the Quran, as we checked already, that there are so many verses talking about this, but basically in the Surah Yasin, saying that وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ وَمَا عَلَى رَسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. That the most important thing that you deliver a message in a very clear explanation. But the other one says also, فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ. Yeah, you have to remind people, but you also have to realize that you are only a reminder. You cannot force people to understand. This is Dr. Shamsi Ali already mentioned earlier that la ikraha fi din. So in Islam, there is no compulsion. Yeah. There is no compulsory in terms of religious teaching. This is really up to the person to understand or to apply or to accept Islam. There is no need to force others to change their religion. That's why we understand that da'wah actually it is not about compulsion. It is not about coercion. Yeah, not even about seduction. So there is no seduction in this case. The same thing for social change theory. Yeah, there are a lot of difference in opinion among scholars in communication about social change. Are we changing people because other people would like to change others, or people themselves like to change themselves? In the Quran, it's very clear that Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqaumin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Dzalika bi anna Allah lam yakun mughayyiran ni'matan an'amha ala qaumin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. There is no change unless a community themselves change themselves. There is no way of others changing other people. The same thing for creation or innovation. So you have to create your own technology. Yeah, you don't always transfer technology from abroad, but you have to create your own technology. And also for civil society, you have to create your own civil society. Maybe the most I agree more to civil community rather than civil society. Yeah, because as I understand that Ummah is basically close to the concept of civil community, borrowing the concept of Ferdinand de Tonis about Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. But in the Quran, it is very clear that in order to create a community, you have to do yada'una ilal khair wa ya'muruna bil ma'ruf wa yanhauna 'anil munkar, and also kuntum khayra ummah ukhrijat linnas. We have to really look forward, not only concentrating on yourself, and then you have to ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar, and also one more element, wa tu'minuna billah. Okay, the next slide, I would like to show you that there are actually so many now platforms that we can use. Next slide, please. Which are Zoom, like what we are using now, and also we also use other things like Jitsi, yeah, Gisco, Google Meet, Skype, free conference, GoToMeeting, Slack, FaceTime, and hologram in the future. But one thing here, the most important thing, I would like to emphasize that in the future, this kind of Zoom, this kind of platform will be changing again, that the so-called hologram. So we can bring people here in terms of hologram in the future, not long time, according to many predictions that many, probably less than 10 years, you will change the way of our communication now, and of course the way of our dakwah, of course. Yeah. Okay, hello, can you change the slide, please? Yeah. Okay, so now we also notice that there are different performance of religion or da'wah. The next one, yeah. We recognize, or we notice that there are religion online. Next one, please. There are also mosque online, particularly for corona virus disease, and people stay at home, yeah. Fatwa online, people can ask about fatwa, anything they want, they can just go to online. The same thing for zakat online, etc., etc. Online Islamic communities. During this period, a lot of Islamic associations, they are doing their webinar, their meetings, almost every week using online system. And the same thing for ibadah from home. We can also, particularly this period, we do our worship to God by just staying at home. And now we recognize the so-called dakwah YouTubiyah, dakwah Facebookiyah, dakwah Instagramiyah, and dakwah platformiyah, and dakwah Zoomiyah, etc., etc. And in the future, it's going to be dakwah hologramiyah. Okay, I think in the conclusion, yeah, I would like to say that dakwah online or virtual dakwah, we can actually touch all aspects of life, yeah, from religious aspects, law legal aspects, economic business aspect, political aspect, and socio-cultural aspect, defense and security, in fact, aspect, nationalism aspect, social justice aspect. And for virtual space religious literacy, the next one before really the end is we can just learn about religious literacy by understanding basic, next slide please, basic understanding of the history, main text, let's say the Quran and the Hadith, and the belief, of course, about Aqidah and philosophy and practices of the contemporary manifestations. And the second one is the ability to discern and explore the religious dimensions of political, social, cultural, and economic expressions. Okay, this one, as I noticed, the challenge, the next slide is, please. The challenge of Islamic now Islamic world in terms of understanding the Quran. Okay, number one is that most people now they just memorize the Quran, yeah, but they don't understand, let alone applying and analyze and evaluate. Actually, the most important thing for learners about Islam, they should be able to synthesize and imagine, and also, if possible, to create something new for themselves, for the family, and for the community, and then for the whole world. Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I also would like to say once again on behalf of our rector, we are very thankful to all speakers, all participants, close to 1,500 participants attending this webinar. And thank you also for our community who have been working for the last 2 weeks, and our very active chairs, Dr. Suparto and Dr. Darmadi for today. And then we are waiting for your questions, and then we are ready to answer your questions. And then hopefully you are able to stay until, let's say, 11 o'clock or so. We don't want to stay too long, particularly for those people in the eastern part of Indonesia. We know that you are already midnight. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Faisal Bhakti, for your great presentation. I think he highlights so many important points on the presence of social media and digital technology, you know, for interactive and real-time communication among people, and how Muslims, including scholars, you know, they are forced to adopt to social media and deliver religious messages effectively. And here are the issues. And he mentioned about the need to have the religious literacy, for example, in what way social media adopted by Muslims and they can improve their da'wah, their understanding of religion. And I think the importance of distributing Islamic contents, basically, you know, the Muslims should have like positive religious information through learning. He mentioned about different stages of literacy, from knowing until understanding, and so on and so forth. With that, I would like to give back my microphone to our co-host, Dr. Suparto, the Dean of Fakultas Ilmu Dakwah and Communication at UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, to continue the next 15-20 minutes of Q&A session, question and answers. I believe we have so many questions and feedbacks already written in the participants board of the group chat. I'm sorry, and I already sent some of these questions to him. So silakan Pak Dekan.
Okay, thank you. Terima kasih. Thank you very much, my beloved brother, Kang Dadi Darmadi, who has done his job very well. And I think there are some questions have been written in the chat room or chat board, and all the speakers, with all due respect, I think you can choose a few questions that might be of your interest, and then you can directly to answer in this session. If there is ample time to have a Q&A session, then we can give to the participants to pose the questions. If you have some answers to deliver, please, I would like to give time to Professor from Nigeria. Hello, Professor Pate, Professor Umar Pate.
Yes.
All right,
I
you can
can hear
respond
you.
some. All right, thank you. You can respond some questions that you have read.
Okay, good afternoon. I could recall few of the questions, though a number of them came up. One was asking about the policy on religious broadcasting in Nigeria. Well, you need to understand the context of the country for you to appreciate perhaps why the government decided to not to allow religious organizations to own broadcasting organizations in the country, for the fear that it might be used for reasons that may affect national unity in the country. And the law is very, very clear on that. Like I've said, the country is very sensitive to issues of ethnicity, issues of religion, and that kind of politics. And perhaps because government fears what may be the consequences, it does not allow organizations to be registered. But for the print media, that one, it can be done. All one needs to do is to register with the appropriate organization, and he can go on printing his newspapers or magazines. Now, what religious organizations do in the context of not being able to broadcast, they record their programs in Nigeria before the advent of the internet, and then hire transmitters outside Nigeria, or sometimes some of the religious organizations have branches out of Nigeria that they will rebroadcast into Nigeria using SW transmitters. But now, with the advent of the internet, things have become much easier. They could directly send their messages or their programs through satellites, and then they are rebroadcast to signal distributors, thereby circumventing the law. And today we have many online, many Muslim organizations that are operating radio and TV organizations that are on broadcast signals. Equally, the internet has given excellent opportunity to religious organizations, religious scholars who are online, either through radio, TV, or through their social media handles. But there is also a disadvantage here. The internet, like all the speakers noted, is also used to distribute negative messages against Islam and Muslims. Equally, the jihadists known as Boko Harams are also actively using the internet to, one, recruit followers, and secondly, to cause confusion, and sometimes to threaten the population, which eventually they turn into violence. So this is the little that I could say, considering the limitation of time. But I will also send my slides, which I believe will be distributed to all the attendants.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, we will distribute we will distribute your materials to all the participants. And I would like to give the opportunity to Professor Esposito. Please, Prof, to respond some questions that might be of your interest.
I see the people's names. I don't see the questions. I mean, if you can see a question that was addressed to me, I'd be happy to answer it. But I can't.
All right.
See.
I will read the questions. One question states to Professor John Esposito, what is actually dakwah problem in Indonesia nowadays? I mean, basic dakwah problem.
I close my picture because sometimes I drink. Now it's question answers. Sorry.
I hear people talking. I'm not sure what I seem to have lost contact.
All right. You can hear me, Prof?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, I can see you too.
All right. Yeah. You
Well,
got the questions?
Well, I mean, part of the question I think was listening to other speakers as well. Is
all right.
You know, how does one understand what da'wah is? You know, is it an invitation to people to understand Islam better? Is it an invitation to people to understand Islam with the hope that they will convert? Or, as has been implied, is it seen by some in a very just singular way, almost narrow way, as in a sense kind of aggressively, you know, preaching da'wah? I remember, by way of answering it, I'll give you an actual example that I had. A number of years ago, I was speaking in an Arab world country in the Gulf, and my hosts and a group of people wanted to see me about doing da'wah among the non-Muslims in this country. So I asked him, well, you know, what do you do? How do you approach people? And he said, you know, we go to the door and we politely knock and, you know, politely talk to somebody and say we'd like to speak to them. But then when he gave me his message, it was an extremely aggressive message. You know, in other words, it was something that sort of said, well, you know, you believe in this as a Christian, and of course, this doesn't really make any sense. And, you know, and now we've got the truth for you. And so my comment to him was, if you want to be effective when you're talking to somebody, you don't walk in the door and slap them across the face. I.e., you know, you don't just say something that's initially going to jar them or be really, you know, insulting. And Christian missionaries certainly had done that, you know, in the past, you know, in many Muslim countries. That is a kind of aggressive da'wah. It seems to me that when I look at people, and indeed in my book, Future of Islam, when I talk about some of the Muslim thinkers of the last 10 to 20 years, you know, people, you know, in Southeast Asia in particular, in Malaysia and Indonesia, you know, we get a group of, that I would see with a more sort of cosmopolitan approach to Islam. And I think that then that is really preaching a message which emphasizes, and all people should be able to do this, the truth of their faith, but also recognizes that truth can be found in other people's religions. In other words, it recognizes pluralism and diversity. That doesn't mean that you're saying that you think that somebody else's faith is as fully true as your own, but I think it does move away from what I would see as too often in the past, a kind of aggressive and negative approach that has occurred in a number of faiths.
Okay, thank you, Prof. And there is a question for Professor Slimi. How to minimize the spread of Islamophobia on social media with da'wah?
It's a broad question. I think the whole conference is about, I mean, implicitly giving us tools on how to reduce Islamophobia in using, you know, this conscious mind of how people receive information and how they can misinterpret things. Our number one is, as it was mentioned earlier, it is our actions. Studies have shown that a lot of people who speak negatively about Islam refer to events, and events do somehow manifest ideas or beliefs and creeds. And majority, as you know, in the rules of marketing, although I don't like to, you know, equate da'wah to marketing, but it is a form of marketing of a good product. But there is the component which is the calling that we have. Muslims, the majority, would like to see other people worship God. However, the very Quran itself said, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَجَعَلَ النَّاسَ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. In chapter Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, just before the very controversial verse that was a few years ago in Indonesia, as you can recall. But the 48, which is before 51, tells us clearly that the will of God is not to make us one nation. And this is why Indonesia itself as a country manifests that tolerance, and I hope it stays there. That it's okay, you do da'wah, but da'wah should be in a form of exchanging ideas. The Prophet, peace be upon him, left a very good message. He didn't force anybody. And as mentioned earlier, we don't force people because we can't give faith. So when in social media, same essence of the message has to be manifested in this. Social media is only another platform, another means for da'wah, but it is so aggressive, so short in terms of time and encounter, so abrupt, that it is not really the platform for da'wah. It's maybe a window open for the world to come and see Islam, and some people would use that window. Sometimes you read a post and you're interested by the person who wrote, and you Google that person and read more about his or her books and ideas. So it's very important to understand that actions are very, very critical. Number two is Islamophobia is not going to go anywhere, and it has been since the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So long as there are different minds and different thinking minds, we can interpret one act in different ways. Islamophobia is the same Islamophobia is manifest by Muslims themselves. There are many Muslims who are scared of Islam when it comes to some kind of practice or sometimes cultural notion of a certain thing, which might take in within another culture more of a religious form. Take, for instance, some practices, and I don't want to go explicitly in it, that are, normal in or even encouraged within a culture, and there is even jurisprudence supporting it, whereas in other cultures it's seen as a negative thing. So those very things can be manifested in the social media or in the world, and seen by non-Muslims as negative things, and you will find Muslims disagree on issue. You have, for instance, polygamy. Polygamy is allowed in Islam, but which context? And sometimes Muslims are more vocal against it than non-Muslims, and then non-Muslims come, and then they could use that debate of polygamy as being a negative things about Islam. I wrote something and I posted about polygamy and how it's practiced and what were the conditions, and there is a social context to it. But to my surprise, I had some opposition from Muslims more than non-Muslims, and I had also non-Muslims taking, events or relatives of theirs who were involved in polygamy, and then seeing Islam as being, counter civilization. So social media, we have to be very careful that Islamophobia, we are sometimes the reason why Islamophobia is there, because we fail to explain the laws and the practices, or actually because of some cultural notions of what we practice, and thirdly, our actions. Other than that, I would say again, emphasize the very conference we attended this morning is by itself an answer to the question.
Thank you, Professor Slimi. I would like to give opportunity also to Al-Mukarram Imam Shamsi Ali and Professor Faisal Bhakti and Yusuf Kara. Even though there is no specific questions to three of you, I think I would like to invite you to respond some specific issues that you might be interested in the points of the chat room that you found. Would you please? Imam Shamsi. Yep.
I missed all the whole questions, but I think I just wanted to join the Professor Esposito and Professor Slimi on the importance of being a role model in the process of da'wah. This word called al-qudwa. In my words before, matching words and action. And the Holy Quran basically criticizes, Ya alladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun, why you say things that you don't do. We see in the Muslim world that people are so angry, and we know that Islam is about patience. إِذَا خَاطَبَهُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. When ignorant people address, they say peace, But in the way we address them, we are becoming violent. See when the cartoon, a Danish cartoon occurred, how many people got killed in Nigeria? I think, Professor, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a nun got killed in Nigeria because of that cartoon. 7 United Nations staff got killed in Afghanistan. There's a building burns in Lebanon. While we in the United States, in America, we organized a rally in front of the United Nations, and we met with the Consul General of Denmark. And he said to us, teach us about your religion, because we don't pay that much attention to the religion. We are the people that they don't pay much attention. So please do teach us. So basically we need just to be role model for the people. And that's why the Prophet, his task is to convey the message. Ma alayka illa al-balagh. Your responsibility is to convey. But he had been a role model. Why? Because role model is necessary for the people to follow the truth.
Thank you very much, Al-Mukarram, Imam Shamsi Ali. And Professor Faisal Bhakti, would you like please to give enlightenment to the participants? Hello, Professor Faisal Bhakti.
Okay, sorry. I had to unmute myself. Okay, I would like also to share the ideas that already Imam Shamsi and also Prof. Slimi and Prof. John Esposito mentioned earlier, the importance of a role model. Actually, what I explained also earlier, there is a verse of the Quran saying that Padakir in nafa'ati zikra sayazakkaru may yakhsha. That you have to remind others, but you have to also realize that only when your ideas, your thought is understood well by the people, will be able to change, will be useful to listeners. Yeah, and also Fadakir in nafa'ati zikra, remind, but you cannot actually change others. Fadakir in nafa'ati zikra sayazakkaru may yakhsha. And then also those people who understands, they will be also realize that this is very important to scare, to be worried about the consequences if you don't understand. Yeah. Lasta alaihim bimusaitin, you cannot change others. Yeah. This is the problem of the Muslim world. They would like to force others to understand what they actually already understand. So we need to be able to use this opportunity to make other people understand. In this case, we need to provide complete information about Islam in the virtual world. And also Islam actually can use any type of media to deliver its messages across the globe. This is a great opportunity for us. And also Muslims should establish their own professional media addressing all aspects of modern life. And the last one is modern media should be developed to fit the morality of Islamic values. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I would like to give also opportunity to Brother Yusuf Kara. Please, Brother Yusuf Kara, LCMA, to say some words.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Assalamu alaikum once again. There was one question about Islamophobia. Said Nursi's solution to Islamophobia. This was the question. So just very quickly, because I took already more than my time, so I don't have extra minutes. I'll just say in a few sentences. Bediüzzaman Said Nursi says the gist of his message in this regard is that I can say is to represent Islam in our actions effectively, number one, and number two, to convey the message of Islam again effectively and correctly. So of course the ill-willed people who want to unrightly attack Islam or any religion or any group, it will always exist. And it is not our responsibility to stop them. I mean, we cannot stop them. It is not, we are not waging a war and we are not doing anything. Because we are peaceful people. And so what we should do on our side, we should just represent Islam. We should live by Islam. So we should represent the beauties of the moralities of Islam, the beauties of the realities of Islam. It is enlightening us socially, psychologically, economically, educationally, in all means of life. And also we should convey the message of Islam to other people methodologically and in a correct manner and effective manner. And with regard to the need of that person and regarding the need of the time.
Well, thank you, Brother Yusuf. To sum up, I think, yes?
Because I'm going to have to leave for another meeting, could I just make one final comment?
Yes, please.
You know, I have been following and coming to Indonesia quite a bit over the years. And one of the things that I've always been amazed at and kind of concerned about is that the Indonesian experience in terms of religious diversity and pluralism has its own contribution and significant contribution that it can make. You know, clearly, as with any country, any society, there are diversity of positions. Some people are more conservative than others, etc. But you've had a significant number of Indonesian men and women who actually, in their talking, in their decision making, etc., give a wonderful example, not only, if you will, to non-Muslims, but to Muslims within the Muslim world, you know, in terms of what I see as a kind of, you know, contemporary and very pluralistic and cosmopolitan example. And I think that there is a time now, as opposed to years ago, when there's more also being made available in English. The problem we had years ago was that many of the really good minds wrote, yes, in Bahasa Indonesia, and even if they studied outside the country, they wanted to be mostly influential in Indonesia. But that meant that people in the Arab world and other parts of the Muslim world, let alone the West, couldn't have access to it. I think that, you know, you have this opportunity, it seems to me, through modern technology, and particularly we see this with webinars, etc., to reach out, as it were, to the world and to bring the perspective of the experience of Indonesia, you know, more clearly to, again, I want to say the Muslim world as well as the non-Muslim world. So I thank you very much for the invitation today, and I apologize very much for having to leave early, but I had this meeting that's concerned with Georgetown University, and I'm already late for it. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you very much, Professor Esposito. To sum up of this forum, to encounter Islamophobia, as mentioned by Imam Ali, is a good example, al-qudwa al-hasana, the role models, soft da'wah and dialogue. And there are myriad challenges in the era of social media, but Muslims have to develop high literacy skills in using technology, media, and packaging information. And as mentioned by our brother Yusuf, we have to show the beauty of Islam. And Professor Esposito add that Indonesian Islam is an example that can be introduced to a wider community outside Indonesia by using the technology and mass media. I think the experiences of Indonesia has to be introduced and spread out to the wider community. And we have access in this modern day with the technology, and we also can translate the information into English and other languages that can be understood by the other communities. I think we have to end this forum, as our brothers who are living in eastern part of Indonesia right now, the time shows 24. Yeah, so we have to end. I think I have to, on behalf of UN Jakarta and all the committee members, I would like to thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to all the participants, and please join with me to thank them. I think please unmute so we can give them applause, a very big applause.
much.
Thank you. Thank you
Terima
very
kasih.
much, Prof. Terima kasih.
All the
Pak Imam
speakers.
Shamsi Ali, thank you. Pak
Terima
Yusuf, thank
kasih.
you. Pak Andi,
Yo,
thank you.
Pak
Prof.
Imam,
Esposito, thank you.
Shamsi.
Mr. Yusuf Kara, thank you.
Yusuf Kala, saudaranya Yusuf Kala.
Thank you. Slimi,
Mr.
thank
Umar
you very
Pate,
much.
thank you so much.
Pate, thank you
See you
very
next
much.
year in Sarawak.
Esposito,
Thank you for this
Esposito,
great
thank you
program.
very much.
thank you.
Esposito, thank you.
Shukran jazila.
Professor Andi Faisal Bakti, thank you.
Professor Andi, Professor Slimi,
Thank
merci
you.
beaucoup. Thank you.
نلتقي فرصة أخرى إن شاء الله.
نلتقي في فرصة أخرى إن شاء الله.
Sokra, inshallah, ya.
Amin, amin.
Thank you.
And please to apologize if any inconvenience occurred during the seminar. Thank you.
Have a little group photo
Mr. Chair.
together online.
Yep.
Photo together. Can someone have like the shoot together? Okay. And I would like also thank all the digital team from UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, from Pusti Panda, from PLKI, as well as from Vidcom, the Faculty of Dawah and Communication. They worked very hard in the last few weeks for all this webinar. And thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you. Yeah. Humas as well. Yeah. Public relations.
Humas, yes.
Thank you, Ibu Rector. Yeah.
Ibu Rector, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
To all the
Thank you to all
participants,
Enjoy
I
your
cannot
trip.
all participants.
Back home.
mention one by one. Unbelievable from Aceh,
from the north tip of Sumatra,
Palembang,
Bangladesh,
from Lampung,
from Pakistan,
Banten,
part of
Jakarta,
Indonesia.
Bandung, Jember, Purwokerto,
Palu,
Jakarta, Semarang. My very good friend,
Musyafa
Dr.
dari
Najahan
Bengkulu.
Musyafa,
from Semarang,
many others. Pak Abdul Malik,
Pak Ustadz Fauzul,
Bu Aulia Rosa,
Alhamdulillah,
Srial, Pak Fauzun Jamal,
Alhamdulillah,
Mr. Sulaiman,
Alhamdulillah,
Mr. Sulaiman from Nigeria.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheikh Ihsan Malik from are you from Bangladesh? I was somewhere.
Sulaiman Muhammad Yar'ad.
Yes.
Okay, syukran jazila ala.
Dan lagi Aliyu Zaini. Thank you very much.
Oke, host bisa.
Hafiz di PLKI bagaimana? Oke ya, Bang Hafiz.
Gimana sertifikat sudah jadi semua?
Oke, Pak.
Alhamdulillah, oke, terima kasih Pak.
Ini ada Hafiz, luar biasa Hafiz.
Hafiz, terima kasih.
Tadi
Pak Syabudin, thank you so much.
Pak Syabudin, terima kasih.
Hafiz sudah dengar tadi ya.
Adit, terima kasih.
Ibu
Nanti
Nirwana,
kalau bisa
Pak
rekamannya
Qadir, Ibu Yunidan.
Iya Pak. Iya Prof.
Bikus.
Okay, they stand by until midnight.
Pak Alwi Smith, ini dari Pak Alwi Smith dari Ternate apa dari Maluku ya? Lupa saya tadi.
Dari
Maluku tadi itu.
Ya.
Siapa?
Bakar Jibril, thank you.
Adnan, Pancasila. Ada rupanya Pancasila.
Masya Allah.
Di khair. Ya. Di khair. Adnan.
Bang Dedi, terima kasih Bang Dedi Fahrudin.
Ya.
Muncul fotonya.
Terima kasih, Ben.
Ya, terima kasih.
Teman-teman semua makasih.
Terima kasih.
Pandi, biasa ilmunya.
Lagi ya, Pak Zamrudin
Abdul Malik.
Pekalongan.
Farudin, wah ini juga. Terima kasih Dedi.
Ya.
Prof.
Ya, terima kasih.
SDMK.
juga ya.
Ekor ya. 1.500, 300.
Ibu berapa?
Aku Bunda tidak dapat sertifikat.
Ya, Bu Dinur, terima kasih.
Oke, terima kasih. Silakan di Oke, Fis.
Ya.
Oke, teman-teman di KKI, terima kasih. Pak Siap dan kawan-kawan, terima kasih. Oh,
Dekan, terima kasih ya. Vidcom, kita kerjasama lagi nanti insya Allah. Lebih baik lagi persiapan dan
terima kasih.
Insya Allah.
Oke, Dekan.
Kita baik lagi, Pak.
Indonesia Raya tadi
For the
mantap.
next webinar, June we are planning to have another round of international webinar. Hopefully share the news to you all in the next few weeks.
Pendidikan.
Oke.
Din Umi Anissa.
Saya kata Pak habis kalian kenapa?
Itu di air. Abdul Malik ini fotonya mantap.
Hafiz Saadin,
ya.
Thank you.
Wih, Malik ini ahli hisab.
Thank you. Oke ya, pamit ya.
Pamit.
Okay.
And thank you so much. Pato, wonderful co-host this evening.